What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 224, and we have finally made it. We just completed Selection Sunday yesterday. We know the full field of 68. We've got a lot of thoughts on it. We finally get to break down the tournament that matters the most. We have spent months on months hyping up these teams, talking about potential runs, talking about injuries that affect teams, but we are finally here on the precipice, on the cusp of figuring out who is going to be our next national champion. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton. Joining me today for this special episode, we've got my full teammates here. We've got Trevor Everett back. It's been a few shows since he's been back with us. We're happy to have Trev back. Coach Scott Para. And we've got our guy, Michael DeRosa. Gentlemen, it's been a long time coming. In a way, it feels like the season went like that, but we are finally here. We know the field. We're going to break down the regions. This is the best time of year. I walked in yesterday because my dad and I have an annual tradition since I was little of watching the tournament selection show together. I walked in, told my mom, I told him, I said, hey, Merry Christmas, because that's what it feels like for us who love college basketball. We have finally made it, gentlemen.
Yeah, look, obviously it is a fun and chaotic time of year. And mine's a little chaotic right now as well. We'll just keep plugging along here, and hopefully at some point there'll be something I can say about all that. But I'm not going to be on this show very much today. I just came on here to say how much fun I've had and how much of a great time I've had talking hoops with you guys. Even joking back to Notre Dame football and a Stratford volleyball run and the Commanders and all the fun stuff that goes on outside of kind of basketball too, but with our lives, and just from an appreciation from me to welcome me like you guys have. And I think we did a seamless, just really easy transition due to how professional you guys are and what you do, and you're true basketball junkies. And for all that, there's nothing more I want than to hopefully have contributed this to grow, because you guys deserve it. And I think it will grow because of how hard you work and how much you care. And so I'll listen a little bit, but before I sign off, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you a bank on it and a shout out, and then I'm going to shut up and let you guys run your show. My bank on it is Houston Cougars cut down the nets. Kelvin Sampson gets it done. Bank on it. My final shout out, Josh, Trevor, and Michael, to you three. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And good luck with this show. Good luck going forward. And obviously, I hope I can come on the other side here sometime soon.
Well, Coach, we absolutely know that you will. We've told you this many times off air. It's only right to say it on there. You've been a huge help. Like growing this, like Sean Miller, and we could go down the list of people, Dusty May, that you've brought on, but more so than that, getting to know you outside of just the world of basketball, kind of like what you've talked about, becoming, in my opinion, friends. We text every day. We're your biggest fans. I know your family, but outside your family, we are your biggest fans, and we will follow you till the end. You've done so much for us. We appreciate the absolute hell out of you, and it's been a tremendous year. We really appreciate it, and you can't get rid of us that easy. That's all I'm going to say. You can't get rid of us that easy.
No, well, enjoy your show.
No, absolutely. And another thing, it's just so awesome being able to talk to a sitting head coach or former head coach about basketball. Like it makes you feel just so much better about some of your takes. Hearing some things like coach being like, yeah, I agree with this, or just there's so much to learn too. It was so awesome. Coach, Josh said it, but I'll repeat it. We're rooting for you like hell wherever you end up next. And I cannot wait to be the biggest Coach Para fan out there.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.
I wish I was asking you what it's like to be in the NCAA tournament right now. I really do, but it really means the world, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, hopefully next year that's what we're doing, fellas. Kick some butt on the show, and I'll tune in when it's all over to catch all your bank on it and shout outs and everything else. So happy March Madness, boys.
Well, appreciate it. Happy March Madness, Coach. Amazing. Like, just amazing. I love Coach Fair. I know you guys do as well. He's been awesome. Let's get into tournament talk, guys. We are live as always. We are spread across all the socials. If you're watching along with us live, We are on the Facebook. We're on the ECB Twitter. We are on the House Twitter. We're on the ECB YouTube, and we are on the House YouTube. If you are following along live with us for this big 2-hour tournament extravaganza, leave your comments in the chat. We will get to them. Leave your predictions when we start breaking down the regions. We're going to have some wild takes. Get after us. We've got special guests coming on here in about 24 minutes. We will be joined by a starting point guard for a team who could be an upset special in the Liberty Flames. We'll be joined by Colin Porter at 6 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, we will be joined by our guy, makes the NCAA tournament. We talked to him a few weeks ago about the potential. They come out of their conference winning the championship. They have a path, I think, to really break some hearts. I'm excited to talk with Lenny Acuff again. He promised we'd come back on. I cannot wait for that chat at 7 o'clock. And you never know who the hell is going to drop by on this big tournament show. It's the biggest one we do every year. Gentlemen, let's get right into the action. I think it's apropos, before we talk about the seeding and all the regions, let's talk about the controversy with the bubble. Now, we have talked about this since day one, basically, when we started to kind of figure out teams and where places, who was rising, who was falling. We're friends with Hunter from NKY Bracketology. We follow a lot of other bracketologists who are top 10 in the world at this. There was not many. Actually, only 27 of 111 registered on Bracket Matrix that had North Carolina in. There was, I think, fewer that had Texas, or maybe it was slightly more, however that worked out. Texas and North Carolina in, Indiana, West Virginia out. I have a major gripe with it. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, though.
Yeah, I think West Virginia it's completely screwed. They were a team that every single bracketologist had in the field, every single one, and they didn't make the tournament. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. Sure, they hadn't been playing particularly well lately, and the tournament committee, when they were asked about it, they were like, Tucker DeVries got hurt, and that was like the reason we didn't put him in. They beat Kansas and Iowa State without Tucker DeVries. You want to know who didn't have 2 Q1 wins? UNC and Xavier. No. They had more wins against better teams, good resume metrics, good all that sort of stuff, and they didn't make the tournament. They got screwed.
It was a hose job.
The thing too, that I guess the further and further I've now, come away from this 24 hours later, roughly, is that, obviously it's to a distinct advantage of West Virginia to be in the Big 12. I mean, that was a huge advantage for them because they stepped up to the plate and they filled that opportunity. Obviously, I think the more I think about it, is it just kind of shows you, we don't have to get into it, but like, it's a perfect example of why the tournament doesn't need to be expanded. I've seen the argument. I've seen the conspiracy theories about like the reason that they did this was to force expansion or whatever. And I'm like, I'm just not there. It is what it is. I think Mike last night on the House broadcast brought up a point about like a moving number, like 60 something to like 76, and just any year that makes sense, do it. And obviously it would never happen. He admitted that, but like there are better ways to do this. I think it was interesting too that they didn't necessarily flat out say this, but the people that we trust, like you mentioned, Hunter and others, that like using Bartorvik for the first time officially and some other metrics, it sounds like it really helped North Carolina. And so I wonder how much of it I'm fine with the panel. I'm fine with the way we do it. Obviously, I think just from a fan perspective and then analyst second, I'd love for it to be a room full of bracketologists as somebody who's not one. I think it'd be awesome to see guys like T3 in that room is probably more qualified than almost anybody in there, other than the fact that they're athletic directors. But my point being is I would just maybe love like almost like a little IRS audit of like, what are we really looking at? Why are we looking at this? And how can it be more weighted in a more consistent manner? We don't have the time or the wherewithal, for me at least, to answer that question today, but I just think that's something that needs to be addressed.
I think that's a good point, and I would expand. So I do not think.
Not the tournament, right? I'm joking.
About the
you said expand. We're talking about the tournament. I was
no, okay. Clear. No, you know my thoughts on expansion.
Of course.
I don't think tournament committees, the 12 men or whatever it may be, should have any sitting connections to a school. There should not be an AD. And Mitch Barnhart, everybody knows I'm a Kentucky fan. Mitch Barnhart, I think it was either last year or the year before last, was on that committee, and I didn't agree with it because there's too much that lends itself to kind of, hey man, like even if they're out of the room, like they're supposed to be. Like Bubba Cunningham was out of the room when North Carolina was discussed. Like Fran Fraschilla said last night, people forget the human element of this. So what? He's not in the room when North Carolina is being discussed, but he spends all day, every day with these people for the last few weeks. And it's kind of like, do you want to look at your friend that you've become friends with and tell him, hey, man, I'm sorry your school, we're not going to put them in, but we still really like you. And we're also going to make sure you don't get that 100K. There's a human element to everything. And go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying, even if they're not buddies, like think about it like this. The NFL owners, when they get together and do things, those guys have made it very clear they are not buddies. That is not a buddy room when those fellas get together, right? Because it's 32 billionaires swinging their what's around. And so my only question, and that's why I wanted to make sure before we went far away from this, is there a way, like in the grand scheme of how they want to do this, it's for transparency. We know the next 5 to 7 years of committee chairs, like that's a good thing. But like, how do we make sure it's not a sitting one like North Carolina? Like bubble was decided 5-6 years ago. Granted, maybe just only have mid majors, but then you have like a really weird, like teams that might never get in, that kind of thing. I think the one in a few years, I can pull up the list in a minute, but the one in a few years is like Iona's athletic. I think it's Iona, someone in the Northeast. That's a very, very small school that's only made it a handful of times in recent memory. And like, that's a good example, but then you have too many of those guys, then you cloud it up. So it's like, how do you predetermine that?
So it's not an exact science. I don't mind the idea if you do take some of the top bracketologists, like a T3, like our guy Hunter, mix them with like people who've been around the game, because this goes to my point as well. We have all this data. We've been told since the net comes in that the net matters, and your quad ones, stack quad ones, and they matter. Don't have quad 3, quad 4 losses. It's supposed to matter. You look at Bart Torvik now, you look at Ken Pom, all computer stuff, which is great. But at the end of the day, you have to win games. North Carolina 1-12 in quad 1 opportunities. To me, that says they had 13 opportunities and came up with one of them. You have to, at some point, yes, the computers need to be a tool like everything else. What I talk about in baseball and basketball and all, analytics are great as a tool. They cannot be the deciding factor. And at some point, results on the floor have to matter. Your eye test has to matter. 1-12 does not say that you should be in the NCAA tournament. I don't care what the non-con strength of schedule is. How many games did they win? They beat UCLA barely, and that's because UCLA basically gave it away at the end. It doesn't matter if you schedule hard if you don't win. Winning has to matter. Computers have to be a tool, not the be-all, end-all. And then the committee board there, take some of the top bracketologists. Give a fresh take on this, guys who study this all year long. Bring in some former coaches who are retired at this point. Like Jay Wright would be awesome in this because he knows what he's seeing on the floor. Teams are good, teams are bad, who's hot, who's not. How do injuries affect these teams? Mix it, kind of make it a melting pot of great minds from different worlds. I'm not saying it's the perfect solution, but I'm saying it may be better than 12 ADs or whatever we have.
It reminds me of the virtual umpire argument, and I've been out of baseball for a while, so I would defer to Josh on that argument. But the part I'm struggling with is like you try to sit here and go, well, what if UC San Diego lost their tournament? Would they have been in over North Carolina or whatever? It's like you start opening up a whole can of worms. I defer to Michael on that, not a bracketologist. I'll quote that.
Are you ready for this one? Drake was an 30-win team. To me, that says if Drake
that happens to them a lot, though. That happens.
I get that. But we've seen mid-majors in their spot get higher seeds. 30 wins. If they didn't win the Missouri Valley, were they getting in the NCAA tournament?
Probably
it makes
not,
you want.
It's incredibly awful.
It's
crazy.
Just for example, I found the article finally. Hoopshd.com, been around a long time. Take it with a grain of salt. I can't find this anywhere other than hoopshd.com. So let's just, I don't know how true this is, but Bubba's this year. Mark Coyle, Minnesota's athletic director, who's got his hands tied right now, trying to figure out how he can get Nico Medved there as fast as humanly possible. Greg Byrne from Alabama in 2026. That's immediately going to cloud up some kind of, could be a 1, could be a 2, could be like, let's be honest, like that's going to be really weird. Keith Gill, this is a great person. Keith Gill, the Sun Belt commissioner, high enough league that maybe won't cloud it, but not low enough league that it'll just be like, let all the little guys in. It's like,
Right.
I think that's a good one. Georgetown, Lee Reed from Georgetown in 2026. A couple of these are next year after. I'm not going to read them all. Just Samford athletic director, Big Sky commissioner, Temple athletic director. Manhattan is the team I was referring to. That's a really good one. I think just a very versatile, somebody that, maybe wouldn't always cloud something up again at the low major level. West Coast Conference, Abilene Christian and Oklahoma State. That is the next handful from 2029 on. It's a good mix already, but just they put themselves in a bad spot with Bubba.
And then knowing the incentive afterwards. Nonetheless, North Carolina in, Xavier in, didn't have a problem with Xavier. I actually thought that we've talked a lot in the last month how well they're playing. I thought they kind of played themselves in compared to some of the other teams. But I'm really, if you're a West Virginia fan and if you're an Indiana fan that has more quad ones than North Carolina. Oh, and Texas with 15 losses. I know the best conference in college basketball, but 15 losses.
Xavier also only had one Q1 win. They were
correct.
Combined, those two teams were 2-21 against Q1.
If you're an Indiana fan or if you're a West Virginia fan and you feel hard done today, I absolutely feel bad for you because, look, sometimes life's not fair and you got the raw end of the deal, it seems like, and we'll deal with it now. We're here with the full field of 68. Let's start talking brackets before Colin Porter joins us here in about 13 minutes. The 4-1 seeds, the overall number 1 seed, the Auburn Tigers go to the South region. The number 2 1 seed, the Duke Blue Devils go to the East region. The number 3 1 seed, the Houston Cougars go to the Midwest. And the final number 1 seed that sealed it for everybody when they ran through the SEC tournament, the Florida Gators out west. Of the 4-1 seeds, before we really dive into the brackets, which one seems the most likely to get clipped early?
Mike, would you like to take this first?
Yeah, I got an answer. The answer is Houston.
We'll
talk about it. It's good that we have different opinions, but I don't think any of them are getting clipped by the 16s. So it's really just a second round matchup. Gonzaga is also top 10 in KenPom. Those are 2 top 10 teams via the metrics going against each other. That adds variance. I think Houston wins that game. And then the next game, you could be playing Clemson, McNeese, Purdue, High Point. I could see Clemson taking, and Clemson beat Duke this year. They could. I wouldn't pick Clemson, but they could. They're probably the 5 seed I like the most, just looking at all the 5s across. Yeah, they're the 5 seed I like the most too. So, yeah, just looking at it from that perspective, I think Houston could get clipped early versus I don't think like a Duke, even though you might be without Cooper Flagg and Jai Lucas left. No, I don't like either of those 2 8-9 teams. And then Auburn, that Louisville game is going to be really tough. But if you can get past that, they match up pretty well with everyone sans A&M. But I think Houston for me. You're playing a top 10 team as well in round 2.
If your question is geared towards early, the answer is Houston. But you guys know I don't actually believe that because Michael laid out basically the entire case for Houston. That is the answer. Even though I do think the more I sat down, I posted it last night. If you guys didn't see it, I did a quick just gut, not really much thought, not really much research. And I had Texas A&M coming out of that quadrant with Auburn. And so, because I think Auburn can lose, I think there's a very clear case of obviously all these teams can lose, right? But I don't think they're just as shoe in as people say. Obviously, that's not the case because Michigan State has gotten picked quite a bit here in the last couple of hours. But the answer is Houston only because, like Michael said, Gonzaga, Clemson losing Dylan Hunter, I think is not being talked about enough. I think that lowers their chances of just making another Elite Eight run. The McNeese part of it, how good do you really think they can be that far into beating somebody like Houston? Although I do think they'd match up against Houston well. And then at that point, if the answer to early is Sweet 16 or sooner, obviously that eliminates the bottom part of the bracket that I really like against Houston. I think they can beat a lot of those teams down there, even though I think there's some good upset potential early. That's the only reason I would say if I had to give you a different answer, I would probably argue just based on the fact that I think Maryland, Memphis, and UConn are all ridiculously hard 4, 5s, and 8s. I would say Florida, but let's be honest, Florida's going to be one of the picks for national championship today for a reason. So I would say Florida only because I think the strength of that 8, 5, and 4. But I've said for 48 hours now that the Midwest bracket's the hardest bracket, and I won't back down from that today or until Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with the Houston take because as much, and we'll break this bracket down when we get out there, but as much as we felt down about Gonzaga, you still look, they're playing their best basketball now. They win the WCC tournament title. They finally get their revenge over St. Mary's in that championship game that was ugly as can be. But you still look at their roster and you still see Nimhard. You see Graham Ike. You see the talented Dusty Stromer. Like, if they play to their potential, they could get Houston. I actually think Auburn got a really, really raw deal with their 8-9 and potential where they have to play that. Michael, did you have something before we moved on and start talking about that South region?
I mean, I just from the perspective, yeah, I agree with you. I think Auburn got a pretty raw deal. Like, Louisville's a team that should probably be a 5. Like, just looking at the 5s, I think Louisville is better than every single one of them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they should be a 5 seed, like, just kind of straight up. And then, yeah, you got to play them in Lexington. Raw deal.
I don't know if this will come up later, so I'll just say it. Like, is Memphis's, and again, bracketology stuff, I just got to be better at. I'm going to defer to resume X, Y, and Z to one of you two, but I've seen the argument like flipping Memphis and Louisville, but I just think that would be disrespectful to Memphis because I don't think they're an 8 by any stretch of the imagination. But just side by side resume, it's a good case that you should probably flip those. But like, what was Louisville's peak? Was it a 6? I mean, Pat was pissed.
A 6 is where I seen them projected going into yesterday. I think that's fair. Here's where I think Louisville got hung up is their best wins were the 2 wins over Clemson, right?
Yeah, that's
if
fair.
you look at Memphis's wins, they got better overall wins, but played in a slightly weaker conference, even though the ACC was pretty garbage this year outside the top 3 teams. Like, so the conference was better for Louisville, but the wins, high-end wins were better for Memphis. But I still don't think it's a 3 seed line difference. The same way I don't think, riddle me this, how does Louisville sweep Clemson in the same conference?
Yeah.
Sweep in a 3 seed line difference.
It makes I disagree with that point.
Because it's not a tournament resume thing that they look at.
Yeah. They don't look at head-to-head matchups. And, just straight up Clemson's resume was better. Clemson beat Duke. Clemson beat Kentucky. You watch Clemson play. Clemson's resume metrics were better. Clemson's resume was just better. Just because they lost twice doesn't mean they weren't the better team for the other 30 games.
Would you have flopped, like, we're talking about, let's just say 7, right? Like, they obviously can't swap with Marquette because Marquette will be playing Creighton in the first round. We know the integrity of that.
Yeah.
But, like, why is Kansas high? Like, Kansas should not be higher than them. I do not care. Like, that, flip those 2 immediately and the bracket's fixed.
And Josh, to your point, to counter your point earlier about Clemson losing twice, we wouldn't move BYU above Iowa State just because BYU beat them twice.
Yep.
I mean, I get that. So I'm not saying necessarily flip Louisville and Clemson. That probably came out wrong. I'm saying there shouldn't be a 3 seed line difference is what I was trying to say on that.
Yeah.
Like, if you think Clemson's resume is better because of those 2 massive wins, that's fine. Like, if you think Clemson's a 5, that's fine. But Louisville's a 6. That's the thing. Not 3 seed lines. Like, we've all watched Louisville. We all, I think, enjoy this Louisville team and think they are dangerous in this tournament, especially if Ryan Smith is healthy. They're not 3 seed lines worse than Clemson, who they beat twice, swept in the regular season, who they finished second in the ACC, and who they lost in a close competitive game in the ACC tournament final to Duke. It's not 3 seed lines difference. I don't care about the Duke Kentucky wins. Those are great wins, but they were also at home. They had the home court advantage there. They came through. Louisville's not 3 seed lines. 1 seed line, sure. 3, no way. No way.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, this is where, like, when you start seeing this stuff, like, let me ask you guys before, Colin Porter is going to be joining us roughly in 5 minutes. So we'll just kind of hold off bracket talk until he joins us here. I've been watching this selection show pretty much my whole life. Actually, he's here right now, so we'll get him on here in a second. But I'll leave you guys with this. I thought yesterday was the most baffling tournament decisions I can remember maybe in my life. From seed lines to teams who got in, it was widely off on a lot of them compared to the best bracketologists in the world to what they had them. I thought yesterday was completely weird.
Really quick, other than Louisville, who was the other one that stuck out? Am I forgetting one? Like just you couldn't believe
Michigan
that
and
they were
Purdue.
under.
Michigan and Purdue. Michigan beats Purdue 2 out of 3 games, wins the Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship, has great wins. Purdue struggled at the end of the year, and Purdue's 1 seed line higher than Michigan makes no sense to me.
Michael, is that a fair one? I know we talked about head not being a thing, but I'm with you on that.
Okay. Makes no sense to me. What we're going to do now, we are happy to be joined by the starting point guard for the Liberty Flames, the winners of Conference USA, and are currently heading into the NCAA tournament. We are happy to be joined by junior point guard Colin Porter. Colin, are you there, my friend? There you are. Got that camera on. Colin from Ashland, Kentucky, by the way. Representing KY out there. We appreciate that. Colin, it's great to have you, man. First of all, tell us the emotion and excitement of Selection Sunday yesterday, knowing you guys will be in the NCAA tournament, winners of your league, but just it's got to feel great, right? When you see your name pop up, knowing that you're in the big dance. Talk us through those emotions.
Yeah, appreciate y'all having me. It was everything that, a little kid from Kentucky's ever dreamed of and more. The nervousness whenever we saw the first 5 seed Michigan, it's like, oh, we could be there. It was kind of crazy because like we were more nervous whenever we saw a 5 seed come up than we were to like start a new game. So
yeah,
it's crazy knowing that your name's going to be called. Because I wouldn't think the nerves would be like that, but it was everything that you could ever just imagine.
That's awesome, Trev.
Colin, I talked to your head coach, Mr. McKay, a couple hours ago, and obviously, for your context, I think he's one of the greatest human beings in college basketball. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah.
And we talked highly just about some of the guys. Like he talked about your group just in general, really. But the question back on the player, anytime I talk to a coach and a player for the same scenario, is what kind of confidence does it give you playing for a guy like that believes so much in you?
Yeah. You said it best. You said he's one of the greatest men in college basketball, and that speaks to who he is and the culture that he's built. It's really, I sometimes can take it for granted, the relationship and the trust that he has given me with his program. But just this past tournament, going out and winning him his, I believe, 4th one here at Liberty, it was amazing. And the hug after the game it meant a lot to me, and I hope it meant the same to him. So. He's been a great mentor and always will be in my life.
Colin, this is going to be your first NCAA tournament game. I mean, you've been at Liberty for 3 years. First year, you guys made the NIT. Second year, no postseason. Third year, now you're finally dancing. What do you think that feeling is going to be like when you walk into the gym and it's like, oh my goodness, like the entire country is going to be watching. We're playing in the NCAA tournament now.
Yeah, I was just talking to some of the guys, Zach Cleveland and Caden Matheny. We were talking about how the first media is going to be, trying to get our feet under us and everything. And, I think that once we get going, it's going to be like what we do every day. I think that it'll be enough to give us a chance to win the game. So that's all that we can ask for, just an opportunity. And I think once we get to playing, then the stage and everything will calm down a little bit and we'll be able to do what we do every day.
To Jarosz's point too, really quick, you're the literal last game on Friday. I don't know if you knew that or not yet. Maybe you really had just been focusing on Oregon, but the pressure of literally being the 10-10 game, 10-10 Eastern on True TV, you're literally the last game to be played on Friday night. So just wanted to throw that. No real question there, but just have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, no, I have not thought about that. I honestly did not know that. So yeah, I appreciate that.
All right, no problem. Good luck.
Conference tournament championship game. By the way, that game, if I remember right on Saturday, it was delayed for all the weather down in the South, right? What was that like?
Yeah, so we were about to tip it up, and then they saw a leak, and I believe it was about an hour later that we got to re-tip it. So for those 40 minutes before we started re-warming back up, we were just in the locker room, laying down, talking. We have a couple comedians on the team, so yeah, we had Taylor Peter and Gabriel McKay rapping a little bit, so it was fun. And like those memories off the court are more special than the ones on, so it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's where team bonding happens, right? Like any player we've talked to, that's where it happens, man. Off the court, and it translates onto the court. 13-9, 4 rebounds in that game. Like that's been kind of where your numbers have been this year. A lot of either double-double, close to double-double. How do you if you had to describe yourself as a point guard, no less, how would you describe yourself as a player on the floor for this Liberty team?
Yeah, just trying to take what the defense gives is one of like the biggest things for me, and then on the defensive end, just being a pest on the other team's guard, and yeah, we got a lot of great playmakers, so it kind of makes the point guard job a little easier than most. So, just we go out and it's awesome. Like we were talking about Coach McKay, the game plan never wavers. So like, we know what we have to do. We got to take care of the ball, get a great shot on the offensive end, and just be hard to play against. So it's really a point guard's dream. You don't got to worry about different scenarios, different coverages. It stays the same with who we are.
So speaking of the Oregon game, getting her ready, how much have you guys, I know it's been less than 24 hours since you found out your matchup. What do you know about Oregon and your team? Liberty's 5th in the country in three-point shooting, 39.5%. You also to defend the three-point shot extremely well, only giving up 28% on the year. Bodes well for a team like Oregon, tough big guards, Jackson Shellstad. Tell us what you know already about Oregon and maybe some things that you're looking ahead towards.
Yeah, we actually haven't watched too much film yet. We're going to dive really deep in that tomorrow, and but just we know there's going to be a tough game regardless of who our opponent was going to be. If you're a 12 or 13 seed, like it's a great accomplishment for a mid-major, but we know that it's going to be hard regardless. And Oregon, I know they have a really good point guard, like you already said, and then their big man is really well, or he's a really well versatile big. He can stretch the floor, so. We watched a little bit of clips, but nothing too serious yet. Like we'll start that tomorrow, so it'll be fun just to watch. And honestly, playing another opponent other than Conference USA would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, Shellstad, tough shot maker. You got to take the airspace away.
Yeah.
When are you guys leaving? Like, what's that travel schedule looking like? You guys leaving tomorrow, Wednesday? Like, what's that looking like?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure yet. Our chief of staff, she has a meeting or a call tonight, so we'll get the itinerary coming out tonight. So we're excited to go back out to Seattle. We started our season there, and so it's really unique that we get to go back and just get some more clam chowder and everything. So
I love that's what you're looking forward
Yeah.
to, my man. Trev, Michael, you got anything else before we let Colin go?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just one quick question. Yeah, I mean, this is the second team this season. You guys played Kansas State earlier. They're going to be the second team you've played that is like a high major team. Is that something that gives you a little bit more like, all right, we're playing a team that like these guys didn't recruit us, these guys didn't want us. Does that give you a little bit more like motivation going into this game?
It's always cool. We can always say that like it never matters who our opponent is. We're going to play the same, and that is true. But just knowing that you're getting a shot at playing a power forward school, it's something that. Every kid's dream is to be recruited by a power forward. So whenever we get a chance to go out and play, we just want to prove that, we can go out there and compete with them. That's all that we can ask for. So just going out there and competing and giving our very best is what we want to do. And I think we'll be able to do it to a really good, to our standard. And that'll be awesome.
Love it.
I got one more if that's all right with everybody. On the way out here, first of all, appreciate your time today. First, I just want to, this is less of a question, more of a lead into what I'm going to say. Someone on the committee clearly has a sense of humor because obviously these two teams played in the Fiesta Bowl in January. Didn't come out on top for Liberty there. I don't know, maybe you went or something like that. Maybe you guys.
No, we saw it. Yeah, we watched it. We actually had a game that same day, so we got to watch it in the locker room. Yeah.
That's just poor planning on NCAA's part. It is what it is. But my question for real, though, is look, we got a lot of dedicated fans here, 300 of them watching right now, that there are people that watch the sport year round and follow it year round, but there are going to be a lot of people that turn on the TV for the first time in February, if not for the first time in March, albeit at 10:10 Eastern like we established. Yeah. And they're going to see Liberty and they're going to have no idea what the school is, who it is, what they represent. So just maybe use the final few minutes here to talk about, like Josh said, you've been there 3 years. Talk about the opportunity it is to just to play at a school like Liberty and really what it means to be there and enjoy your time there.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's very well said. Liberty it's just like a university that is amazing and near and dear to my heart. Like, whenever I made this decision, it wasn't all basketball. So, like, obviously getting to play a power forward, thinking that we're underlooked. Like, I committed going into my junior year. My best friend, roommate, Zach Cleveland, committed going into his junior year. So, going to Liberty isn't really a basketball decision in some eyes. It's more about being in that culture with Coach McKay, building the man, like he really sees us more than basketball players. So that's something that we all look forward to going to Liberty University. So I think that it'll be special letting the world see us and seeing how we, just interact with the other players, the referees, whatever the case may be. We're just going out there to try to glorify God, and I think that we can do that at a very high level.
Man, very well said. I love how much, how highly regarded you guys speak of your coach, Richie McKay. I think that speaks volumes. Best of luck, man. There's a tall task in front of you, but anything can happen. I think there's a lot of people in this chat, because I know that they've told me in person today that are liking the Liberty Flames for maybe a little run here. So best of luck in the game on Friday. Safe travels out there, my man, and we appreciate you coming on. And hey, Kentucky's strong, my man. My family's from Adair County, so
love Kentucky, man. Kentucky Blue. Appreciate you guys so much.
Appreciate it for having me. Thank you, Colin. Best of luck.
Rooting for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
He was awesome, man. I mean, like, anytime a player can speak about their coach with that type of reverence, you got a special thing going on.
Love it. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that people understand, like, Liberty obviously as a university has a greater purpose, and that's why I wanted to ask.
It's a faith-based university. Like, I'm not afraid to say it. Like, it's a faith-based, and
of course,
yeah. I mean, it's not for really everybody, but
it's just really, I just know that opportunity to play there and what it means to play at a school of that, and really, like, just the history of that program not being, I mean, they made an NCAA tournament, I think late 80s, if not early 90s. I'd have to pull there's a large gap if you look at their historical sheet. It's like the one in the 80s or 90s, and then when Richie took over, it's just tournament central after that. And so it's really cool to just see, like, how fast the school's grown and just how awesome an opportunity is to even, like, 12. Conference USA, I think honestly they might have gotten slighted a little bit. We're talking about bad seeding. I've said to Richie this morning, like, they were the 9th best conference in KenPom this year. That was better than, like, the Big Sky and the American and some other conferences that we really highly regarded. Conference USA was legit, and they were the powerhouse of it.
Yep. Really great program. Seen Liberty in person, talked to Richie McKay before. Great program. We will talk about the Oregon matchup once we get to that region, because that is an upset darling. I've seen people and heard people literally tell me today that they've taken Liberty in that matchup. We will get to it. Michael, no further ado, let's get into the regions finally. If you wouldn't mind pulling that bracket up for us, sir, and let's start with the South region, where the number 1 overall seed, Auburn Tigers, lie. They will play, of course, the play-in winner between Alabama State and St. Francis University, Pennsylvania. Look, no offense to Alabama State, SFU. One of them is going to get a tournament win. They can talk about the rest of their life coming up. I don't know if they played it tomorrow or Wednesday. I haven't looked that far ahead. But one of them get a tournament win to ultimately get the right to go to Rupp Arena and probably end their season against Auburn. Anything can happen. But the 8-9 matchup, let's talk about it. We've talked about Louisville. We feel is criminally underseeded. Creighton, Michael, you've talked about them a lot this year because they're in your conference in the Big East. This is a team that when Stephen Ashworth plays well and they can force feed the ball into Ryan Kalkbrenner and he's allowed to kind of roam the paint and block shots where he does so great, this team can really make a run. But you're talking about a Louisville team. Assuming Ryan Smith's healthy, I've heard he is. He'll be good to go for this matchup on Thursday. This is the first game of the tournament, by the way, tipping off at that noon tip, 12:15, I think it is. Inside Rupp Arena, Louisville will have the overwhelming, I would imagine, crowd support in Rupp Arena, 70 miles drive down south there. This is a fun one because Louisville's pace, Louisville's three-point shooting, man, it should be interesting. What's your feeling on this, Michael, when Creighton and Louisville lock horns in Rupp Arena?
Honestly, I don't think the Ryan Smith injury matters too much in this game. First of all, I'm going to give my take on the 16 seeds. I'm going to pull this back up. Just because no one else will. Alabama State should beat Stephen F. Austin, PA. Alabama State, it's father-son, Tony Madlock, and TJ, his son, and then they have a really good guard, CJ Hines. They should beat a San Francisco team that did not go above 500 this season. So if you really want a 16 seed knowledge, there you go. Alabama State's going to win that game. But talking about the 8-9 matchup, yeah, I don't think Ryan Smith's stats matters too much in this one. In fact, Chucky Hepburn can run the offense for Louisville. And defensively, if he is guarding Stephen Ashworth and he's able to take Stephen Ashworth out of what Stephen Ashworth wants to do, that changes everything. Creighton is a very matchup-dependent team in my eyes. The big fella, Ryan Kalkbrenner, if he's able to get going offensively, in which in this game I think he is, that's one of the keys. They're going to get him going. I don't think Louisville's a guy that can stop him. Louisville's guys they play at the 5 aren't really 5s. But that goes on the other end. I mean, the way you want to play against Ryan Kalkbrenner defensively is you want to space him out, right? Case Pryor, shooter, just going up and down the Louisville roster. Who can't shoot on this Louisville team? James Scott? He's not a great shooter.
Pat Kelsey might be the only person that can't shoot on this roster, and he was a pretty good shooter back. It's all jokes aside, it's a real thing.
Yeah,
like it's those two bigs, but if they're able to go small with Noah Waterman, not
Case Pryor.
Case
Pryor's been hurt. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, you go small with some of those guys. The way you're going to be able to space out Kalkbrenner, if you go with Waterman, a Hadley, and just find like lineups there, I think they can cause real problems for Creighton. Not to mention they're just the better team. I think this is a really bad matchup for Creighton, not only in the fact that you're playing a team that is really underseeded, but you're playing a team that matches up really well with you. I quite a bit like Louisville in this game.
Yeah, Trevor, I like the aspect here because what Michael laid out there is Louisville has the ability to pull Kalkbrenner away from the rim, right? I mean, obviously no Kashawn Pryor, he got hurt earlier in the year, but Noah Waterman. James Scott, even though if he's not shooting outside, he can be used as a pick and roll guy, rim runner, dribble handoff guy to allow his guards to get downhill where he kind of uses a butt screen to pin the guards. I just like Louisville's spacing. They've played in this building before. They played a really competitive game. Keep in mind, Louisville hadn't shot the 3 particularly well until that Kentucky game, and they hit like 13 of them. They know this building. This style of play, I think, is causing matchup nightmares for Creighton. Ryan Smith should be back, like I said. But, man, Waterman, and then we've got to talk about Terrence Edwards. How great has he been here lately? He gave Duke the business in the first half, and he just started going cold in the second half. And I think it's a big reason, honestly, why Louisville lost. If he would have kept somewhat of the pace, Louisville may have got Duke in the ACC title game. He was on a heater. I don't think Creighton has anybody that can guard him. I think this is a big Terrence Edwards game coming up. And I like Michael's point, Trevor, about Chucky Hepburn has been amazing this year for Louisville. Looks like a totally different player from what he was at Wisconsin. The ball pressure he's going to put on Stephen Ashworth is going to be ridiculous for 94 feet. You're talking about a dude in Chucky Hepburn that's had games this year with 6-7 steals. What can he do against Stephen Ashworth, who is not the most athletic? I wouldn't say the tightest ball handler, really solid point guard. But if he can't get in his action and he can't get it to Kalkbrenner, what does Creighton have? I like Louisville pretty big in this one.
3 factors for me. It's basically a Cardinal home game. Let's just call a spade a spade. That was the only like redeeming quality for me of the 8 line was like they got the home game. Like someone in my salty Carolina fan in one of my group chats was like, oh yeah, Rupp Arena, the famous place that Louisville plays. I'm like, you're an idiot if you don't know what I'm referring to. I'm like 70 miles. Like, are you kidding me? Like it's a home game. Anyway, Pat Kelsey. There's not a top, there's not 5 better coaches that prepare their teams right now in college basketball, especially with the roster and preparation that he's had to deal with this year or lack thereof. And then Chucky Hepburn, we don't necessarily have time today for this, but, ACC guy wrote him for the magazine, the whole thing. He was the reason I wasn't as high on Louisville this year. I had him, I think, 5th or 6th. And like, I was really, really concerned. Granted, that doubts Pat Kelsey and a lot of other factors, but, maybe a clean bill of health and some other things went Chucky's way. He's defensive player of the year for a reason in the conference. I had some questions coming into the year, and I thought Ryan Smith was going to be the guy that controlled everything. And for them to be winning the way they're winning, like losing 2 games since December, I think Pat said on radio, like for them to do that with basically 8 fully healthy guys when they had 12 at one point, like it's kind of insanity the way this team's just continuing to play. And it just honestly, it speaks to worlds and volumes to what Kelsey can do, because that Charleston team last year that I got a chance to see 5 times, I talked about on this podcast at least, like they were healthy. They had 11 of these guys. And now he's doing this in a harder conference with 8 guys. Like it's just a testament to this team. And I don't want to disrespect Creighton in any way. I think Kalkbrenner is one of the most exciting players in college basketball in the last 20 years. I've really enjoyed it. I mean, look, he's in like Big East class, like all world first class because of the 4 defensive player of the years. But like you guys said, they'll be able to do things to match up really well. I like the coaching matchup here as well. I'm going to take Louisville. I think it'll be a lot closer than I think people are giving it, just because of the sheer bill of health. But Creighton's not exactly rolling in here fully healthy either.
Don't sleep on a guy like Javon Hadley either. He's had moments this year in ACC play where you look up and he's getting off at the rebounds for putbacks. He's making defensive plays at the rim. He's leading the break. He's another one of those kind of versatile, whether you want to slot him as like a 3-4, depending on matchups, that I think could have a big game in this, because again, Creighton just does not have guys that they're that size and athletic that can really match up. I think Javon Hadley could play a big factor in a game like this. Here's what I'm feeling. If Creighton wins this game, they've got to get hot from three, Michael. Like they've got to, because if Louisville finds the rhythm, the way they spray the three ball, like what are they, 19th in the nation in 3-point attempts per field goal attempts, top 20 at the worst, they're going to be able to make a bunch if they can get rolling. Creighton's got to match it, and I just don't know if they can.
Absolutely. And a guy like Jemiah Neal is key in this game. We've seen good Jemiah Neal, and we've seen bad Jemiah Neal in the Big East tournament. He was really good in the game against UConn that Creighton ended up winning. He was excellent in that game. He was really bad in the DePaul game, and that gave DePaul a chance to win that game. Creighton is almost entirely dependent on Jemiah Neal being that third scorer to take him to another level or not. He's probably their best creator in the half court, especially if you're taking Ashworth out of that game, which you will with Chucky Hepburn. If Chucky Hepburn's guarding Ashworth, he's taking him out of that game. They're going to need Jemiah Neal to be excellent if they want to win it. And
yeah,
I don't know.
So we go on a clean sweep Louisville to advance to play Auburn in the second round.
Yeah, I've made 2 bets, I think, on the slate already. One of them is Louisville.
Perfect. Let's go down the bracket here. 5-12, very interesting, because we just talked about Michigan, I think, is underseeded by at least a slot. I think they projected to me as more of a 4 seed, but alas, they end up as a 5 line. UC San Diego has been everybody's darling this year, coming from the low major ranks. 30-game winners. Really interesting matchups here. A team that can really play, has some high-level D1 talent on that team. We know I wish Coach Parra was on here to give us the stat, because he always loved this with Dusty's team this year. The amount of close victories Michigan has. They did it again in the Big Ten tournament, a couple games. Can they continue to roll this? Do you guys think UC San Diego, the darling as they've been, can play with that huge lineup that Michigan is going to throw at them with Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf? Not to mention Trey Donaldson has been amazing this year. Remember when we talked to Dusty a few weeks ago, talked about his development. It has really been a big cog in the wheel that has been Michigan this year. Can UC San Diego keep this close to make it where it's really interesting the final 4 minutes?
Yeah, I'll be short and sweet. I think that they will. A couple of factors. Michigan's in the bottom, let's just call it, they're in the bottom 300s in turnovers. And so that UC San Diego also is the second best turnover defense. So that immediately just, flip flops that margin. I think if it's that close, that maybe won't give them the lead. But I think they're a really good 3-point shooting team. And honestly, as silly as this is going to sound, I love Dusty. I hate Michigan. Like at the end of the day, like you can't keep winning all these ridiculous, like it's just voodoo at this point. Like they're going to lose one of these games. And guess what? It's one thing to do this in the Big Ten tournament. It's one thing to do this in the regular season. They had a negative margin of victory, a negative net margin of victory in the last 12 games in the regular season. That is insane. That's unheard of. And so eventually a good team, a really well-prepared team is going to pick you off. And I think it's this early. If not, it's going to be Texas A&M in the second round.
I agree with Trevor. I'm going with the upset. I'm going with UC San Diego in this game. Aniwa Tate Jones is one of the best players in the country that I think people will learn. He's a 6'6" forward. He kind of plays the 4. Yeah, I really like his game. I think he's quite skilled. I think what he does makes things really difficult for a team in this spot, like a Michigan that, Danny Wolf's going to be on him. Danny Wolf is pretty slow. His feet don't move particularly fast. So I think Tate Jones can be a difficult matchup. One thing Michigan's definitely advantage, as Josh mentioned, is the big lineup. The bigs. In UC San Diego's conference tournament game against UC Irvine, they went against a good big, Luchton, I think is how you pronounce his name. I think that's off, but like really good big. And he gave him problems. But so I think the big passing with Wolf and Golden will give problems, but I don't think Wolf can guard Aniwa Tate Jones. I don't think he can. Tate Jones is a really, really solid player. Excellent passer to that high post. His jump shot's okay. It's not great, but everyone else around him they can shoot it, and that's going to space the floor. Vlad Golden's going to get out of the paint defensively, and you're going to have to move. That gives one-on-one opportunities. I like the way UC San Diego plays, and Trevor mentioned this as well, the turnover difference. UC San Diego is the 7th best team in the country at not turning the ball over. Michigan's defense doesn't really turn teams over. Michigan offensively, they turn the ball over almost 20% of the time. UC San Diego is 2nd best team in the country at forcing turnovers. There's a chance Michigan's turning the ball over 25% of the time. There's a chance UC San Diego is winning the turnover battle, and they're the better shooting team for me. This is especially, you mentioned it, Josh. Coach Para loves the stat of how many close games Michigan wins. Those aren't repeatable. Those, at some point, that's going to get you. If you're playing every single game close, the coin's not going to flip heads every single time. Sometimes the better team does win close games more often than not, better point guards, all that sort of stuff. But not every time. Not every time. I'm going with the upset here. I like UC San Diego.
You keep putting your hand in the snake's mouth, it's eventually going to bite.
Look, I like all the reasons
it's going to burn you.
I like all the reasons you guys have laid out. One thing that we're not taking into account in a matchups like these are the foul problems. UC San Diego clearly does not have the type of depth that Michigan can go to their bench to. Their 5 or 6 are good, but what happens if Tate gets in foul trouble, like real foul trouble early, and he's got to set? Or do they set him and risk picking up a third early? I think in a game like this, UC San Diego has to be out front and put ball or game pressure on Michigan and make them tight. When the higher seed is down, the rest of the crowd, you guys know how it is, the rest of the crowd that is neutral will cheer for the upset. It makes the favorite tight. I think UC San Diego has to keep game pressure on the entire 40 minutes to pull this upset off. I just think there's going to be a spell somewhere probably in the middle 8 that Michigan gets enough separation, hits the backboards, runs that big-to-big pick and roll, and gaps them enough to kind of keep them at bay. Because if not, look, if you get down to the final 4 minutes and this is a ball game, Michigan will feel the pressure. Believe me, they will feel the pressure. I think that's a fun upset pick. I'm going Michigan personally, but I can see where UC San Diego could really make this interesting. Look at the rest of the South region. Look, we talked all this crap about North Carolina. The reality is they're in. The other reality is, guys, if they get by San Diego State in Dayton, there is a path here that Carolina can make the second weekend. As much as we have not necessarily enjoyed this team all year, guards dominate March. Carolina has no bigs, but they've got guards, and if they play well, they get by San Diego State. You play Ole Miss, who we have talked all year about. It was tough as hell, right? Tougher than a $2 steak, the old saying goes. They can get by Ole Miss. Then you're playing either our guy Lenny's team in Lipscomb, or you're playing Iowa State, who's down Keshawn Gilbert. I know it sounds crazy, and they shouldn't probably be in the NCAA tournament, but there is a world where RJ Davis gets red hot in North Carolina and winds up in the final 16. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's ludicrous. I just be honest. I like Ole Miss. I liked them early. I think Sean Badula, is just a dude, and I think defensively Ole Miss will really be able to muck that up. So I do see I'm not shooting down the potential of it being the case, because I do think San Diego State just isn't the year for Dutcher in that group, I think. But I think Ole Miss can clip Carolina just as easily as they could.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Keep in mind, though, this isn't unprecedented. Like UCLA, I know it's slightly different because of the bubble. Remember, they got in, had to go from Dayton all the way to a Final Four. Syracuse has done it from Dayton to make an Elite 8 run when they shouldn't be in the tournament. This has happened before, and Carolina's got the guards if they play well. That's all. I mean,
you can give me the historical data all you want. I've seen this team twice in person this year. Believe me, okay, this team is a carcass, and it's just If there's anybody that out of the three of us that believes that, it's me. And look, Ole Miss, they're more battle tested. Call the SEC what you want. They're going to be way more prepared for this game than Carolina would. Not breaking any news here necessarily. The News and Observer did report that Carolina's charter flight is going to be delayed by 3 hours. Not necessarily news, because literally this happens to people all the time. But just add fuel to the fire that they're now getting to Dayton 3 hours later than expected. So
yeah, I actually think North Carolina matches up fairly well with Ole Miss, because Ole Miss lets teams shoot a lot of threes. North Carolina's going to shoot a lot of threes. I got San Diego State. I think San Diego State, they're the underdog in that game. I think that line is flipped. I think San Diego State, San Diego State's big. They're a big team, and North Carolina does not have any size whatsoever. Big at multiple positions. That I think if you have like a Miles Burt, an elite defender, you put him on someone, you're kind of taking them out of the game. teams like Duke put flag on RJ Davis, and that really took him out of the game in some of the earlier ones. I think you can kind of do the same with Miles Byrd. I'm very interested to see the game plan Brian Dutcher comes in with. He's a very good coach. I mean, he took San Diego State to a national championship game. That doesn't say a lot about him. I don't know what does. I got San Diego State. I think San Diego State can actually win multiple games as well. I think either of these teams can beat Ole Miss. If it's UNC, I will probably be picking Ole Miss either way. It's a game I'd want to look into a little more when it happens. But yeah, I got San Diego State.
So you guys think that UC San Diego can be a big upset in this region. When you look at the rest of the bracket, is there another upset on the horizon that you feel at least that the potential is there? Because I have one. You guys probably know who I'm going to say. But is there anywhere else in this bottom part of the region that you feel like a big upset can come from?
I think Bryant actually can match up with Michigan State really well.
Really? Okay.
The length.
Timberlake?
They're huge. They're just a huge team. They play really physical. And I think Michigan State, like, they've kind of just adapted, or really, like, I can't remember who made this original point, so I'm kind of stealing this, but let's be honest, we all steal from each other. Like Michigan State under Tom Izzo, since he took over, like, college basketball, like, changed, and Michigan State never did. And they've kind of just fallen back into, okay, well, physical team, whatever, right? Michigan State's winning their 2 seed with that. And I think Bryant just from a X's and O's standpoint just matches up really well. From a personnel standpoint, would probably be a better way to put it. I'm not predicting it. I'm not picking it in any way. But just if you were to give me, like, New Mexico, Clemson, we fell for that last year. All of us had New Mexico. It didn't happen. I love Donovan Dent, but it's not happening again. I think Shaka is going to have that team very motivated. Cam Jones, best player on the floor. I know which one you're going to say. We're going to talk to him in 33 minutes. Yeah. So might as well do it then. But yes, Iowa State's injuries are going to cloud up the Lipscomb thing. So that's the easy answer.
Well, I learned my lesson last time Lenny was on a couple weeks ago. I predicted that they'd win their conference, and I predicted maybe a run, and everybody's like, oh, don't put that on him. I'll go ahead and say it here real quick. I think Lipscomb. I'm not like 100% confident on it. If I had to put a confidence meter on it, it would be 50-50. Because Keshawn Gilbert's out, Iowa State struggled down the stretch. We all know this. They fell to a 3 line when they were projected a month ago to be battling towards the 1 line. They're not playing their best basketball at the moment. And Lipscomb, if you're talking about a mid-major that has a chance, a team that controls tempo, they shoot threes and make threes. They've got experienced guards in Will Pruitt and Joe Anderson, and they've got a big man in the middle that can absolutely give Iowa State or any of these teams in this region for the most part problems. And Jacob Ognosovich, I like this Lipscomb team a lot. I don't know if they can win it, but this will be probably my upset pick. I just think a team that can control tempo in the half court, selectively run, have experienced guards that can make shots, that is a hard combination to go against. And it's the same way we talked about UC San Diego. If they can make this a game, get inside the final 4 minutes, Iowa State, man, tighten up a little bit. I like Lenny's team in this game.
Yeah, just on these 2 upset games you guys are talking about, I'm with Trevor. I think if there's any 15 seed that's going to win, it's Bryant. The way they're so long versus how Michigan State just wants to solely attack the rim, I think they match up pretty well. I think they'll give him a game. I think they'll keep that game fairly competitively. And Lipscomb with Josh, I also agree. Iowa State is not as good without Keyshawn Gilbert. Like, they're just not. He's missed 4 games. They were 1-3 in those games. Granted, some of the games he missed, you were without when they played Houston, they were also without Curtis Jones in a loss. When they played BYU, they were also without Tamin Lipsey. So in the games where just he missed, they were 1-1. Lost at Oklahoma State. Win is over a very good Kansas State team. Very good, Jesus. A fine Kansas State team. Yeah, that was verbal typo. Oh, goodness. That was bad. Yeah, the way Lipscomb can shoot it, spread the floor, shoot it. Worries with me, I'm going to ask Coach Jacob about this turnovers. How do they limit turnovers? Lipscomb is a team that doesn't really turn the ball over, but they're going against a lot of athleticism. And Iowa State really turns teams over. If they're able to limit turnovers, I could see Lipscomb winning this game. But if they're going to turn the ball over a lot, I could also see Iowa State completely blowing them out.
Lipscomb 22nd in the nation in turnover percentage on offense, which means they don't turn the ball over a whole lot. And Iowa State's defense 14th in the nation in forcing turnovers. Something's got to give there, you would think. I like the point. Let's finish up the South region here. Who is your Elite Eight matchup, and who do you have coming out of to the Final Four out of the South bracket here? Trevor, I'll let you go first on this one.
It's probably going to change in the next few weeks. I just want to make that abundantly clear. I have Texas A&M and Auburn in the Elite Eight. Reason being, just to give you some historical context, I have some fun facts I'm going to get through
Hold
throughout
on,
the day.
they're playing the Sweet 16. They're on the
Oh,
top
sorry.
part of the
They would
sub.
play,
Yeah.
they would play in the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Good grief. All right, I got to look at this again. Either way, my point still stands. I have Texas A&M beating Auburn right now, so I have Texas A&M. I think that they are a matchup nightmare for Auburn. I think Wade Taylor's the best player on the floor most of the time when he's not playing against Shania Broom, and so that matchup, obviously, they've already beaten them. That messes up my entire point, them not playing in the Elite Eight, but you get my point. I have Texas A&M. I'll just say, for the sake of the fact that I don't see enough potential long-term with Iowa State because of injuries, New Mexico making a weird run. I just don't think there's anybody that's deep enough to make a deep enough run, I think, in that bracket. So I would go Michigan State there. And the reason I'm picking against them, I'll give you some historical data, like I was going to say, is no 2 seed has ever made the Final Four that was unranked in the preseason, which eliminates Michigan State. So I'm going to take Texas A&M to make the Final Four. Team I've been on all year.
Interesting. I think there's competing data too, because what is it? Every team who's been in the top 12 in the AP poll after it was at week 6.
Week 6 AP poll. I'll get to that later. I have I'm picking my national champion based on
Okay. I was going to say, I think Michigan State was a part of that. So it's like competing data.
There's
Michael,
a lot more things that go into that, to be clear, but yes.
Yeah, you guys and your dorky trends. Yeah, trends, schmens. Don't pay attention. Who cares? I got Auburn making the Final Four to this region. The bottom of the region, I'm not particularly confident in whatsoever. It's just throw a dart.
I'm with you. The bottom's bad.
It really is a wild card.
If Iowa State was fully healthy, I'd be picking them to confidently make the Elite Eight. Frankly,
same.
I
could kind of see them doing it anyway. But yeah, I'm going to go Auburn over Michigan State for the time being.
Michael, think about this too. If we go back a couple months, everybody dying to see the Iowa State Auburn rematch. We could theoretically get it, but at this point, Iowa State's not fully healthy like they were back in Maui, where they blew an 18-point lead, so it wouldn't be the same. I'm going crazy here. I'm going crazy because I do think there's something that I think Auburn, the way they finished the year, does scare me a little bit. I don't know if they've been figured out. I don't know if they kind of took their foot off the accelerator. I think they've been figured out. I have Auburn losing in the second round, and I'll go either whether it be Louisville or Creighton, since we had Louisville. I'll say Louisville gets them, buries a bunch of threes, home court, whatever you want to say. But I have Louisville losing to Texas A&M in the Sweet 16. I have A&M, Michigan State. I love Sparty. I think this is a typical Izzo team, and I've got Michigan State going to a Final Four because their defense, the rebounding, everything lines up for the typical Tom Izzo March run. And I think avoiding Auburn, who is a bad matchup for them, they can play the style A&M plays. Give me Sparty coming out of the South region to go to the Final Four. I've had that feeling for a month and a half now. Let's go over to the number 2-1 seed here. Let's go to the East region where we have the Duke Blue Devils. Duke's the 1. They will play the play-in winner between American and Mount St. Mary's. You look at the 8-9 matchup, Mississippi State, Baylor, Oregon and Liberty. We just talked to Colin about his Liberty team. To me, this region in the East has the most upset potential, I think, of any of the 4 regions. When you look at Akron over Arizona is an upset special. I know a lot of people are picking Liberty over Oregon. You look at the BYU VCU matchup is really competitive, I think. Even Vanderbilt, I remember 5 weeks ago, and I talked about potential Cinderellas with Coach Para, Michael. We were talking about one of these teams that could go on that type of NC State run. I said Vandy. I think they can get by St. Mary's, probably get killed by Alabama, but if they got by Alabama, they could come all the way down to Elite Eight. What's your guys' take and feeling on the East?
I don't necessarily agree with the upset part. I'll be short, Michael. I don't really agree with some of the upset part of it, although I do like Akron, although I do like Liberty. I think we'll get to another region. I'm more confident. I'll say, let me reword it this way. I'm less confident in this region of upsets than I would be versus another one, although I do think there are some good ones as you laid out. VCU, Akron, Liberty. If all 3 of those happen, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. A lot of people really like Montana. I think it's discrediting Wisconsin. Just my overall thought is this actually might be one of the harder regions underratedly, just because of Alabama, maybe going flying under the radar as a 2. Wisconsin, I think, again, the way they finished the season, I think they're a really good 3. I think the top 4 of this is arguably one of the stronger 4s. I just think just an overall picture here. How much will those mid majors muck things up? I think some of the top teams here might come out swinging and be a little stronger than we think.
Yeah, I have zero confidence in just about anything in this region.
Yeah, it feels chaotic, doesn't it?
A region of
like,
confusion, yes?
Yeah, it feels like a region of confusion or chaos is potential in this.
Yeah, it's how
We
much
should name every bracket, by the way. We'll name every region. I think we did. Did we not do that last year? I thought
We did do that last year.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'm not crazy. I thought I was for a second.
So what was the South? Like, I don't even know what we would call the South.
Yeah,
there
what
with
would we call
Auburn.
this? Region of death? Region of death?
I mean, that's a pretty brutal.
a lot of bruisers, a lot of bruising teams.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's go with that. I like that. Let's do this. Bruiser.
The bruiser region. I like it.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bruiser region. I like that a lot. And then the East is the region of chaos or confusion, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Confusion, because I think chaos is the overarching word of the whole tournament that gets you switched.
Okay, a region of confusion. I like it.
God, I don't have many takes I'm really strong on. I think Duke makes that out of this region for the confident in that. But like just going up and down, I have zero feel on Mississippi State Baylor. I do think Liberty gets by Oregon because Oregon's on and off. Don't know what version of Oregon we're going to get. Yeah, but I'm not confident in that.
Quack, baby. Let's go.
And now I can't believe I'm fading Oregon. I loved Oregon. I like Arizona.
Ever, man. Forever.
Yeah. BYU, VCU is a game I'm also not particularly confident in. I'm going to go with the
defense right there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, will BYU be able to stand up to VCU's pressure? Just the pressure defense they put on teams. I'm not too sure. Just going up and down.
I will say this region is a region of offense too.
Yeah.
You look at Duke, Oregon, Arizona, BYU, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Wisconsin.
And so many of those teams, they shoot a ton of threes, and that adds variance in the game. What happens if you're just cold? Alabama shoots a ton of threes. What happens if they're cold against, I think it's St. Mary's in round 2. What happens if they're cold against St. Mary's?
What if Grant Nelson's not back? What if Grant Nelson's not back for Alabama? That changes them entirely with Grant Nelson.
Yeah, so I don't have any feel for this region whatsoever. My strongest take is I think Duke makes the Final Four. My second strongest take with anything in this region, guys, I'm doing it again. I'm going back to the 16 matchup, the play-in game. I think American smokes Mount St. Mary's. I think they smoke them. I really, really like American in that game. Look, American, we're talking about a team. Matt Rogers is going to be the best player on the floor. Elijah Stevens is going to be the best guard on the floor. Versus Mount St. Mary's, that team that's very injured. They were the 6th seed in the MAC. They won it. Good for them. But they're going like 6-7 deep. American's healthy at this point. I think American smokes them. That's my second most confident take in this region. And that's not a good thing because I have no idea how the rest of that bracket plays out. I have no read whatsoever.
Trev, I want to get
to your point, though. Hold on. To his point, just about American, really quick. They were coming into the year, like High Point played them. A couple of teams around here that I covered played them. They were like a couple of non-con wins away from being like a 15, and I would have probably picked them against a lot of people. And they just had some injuries early in the year. Yeah, I think American's way under. Like I think they're way more talented than a 16 seed. Just to Michael's point.
We got it. American over Duke in the first round. I love it.
No,
I want to get to something because in our initial kind of reaction when the bracket was revealed last night, my first thought was this is a cakewalk for Duke to the Elite Eight. You disagreed because I know you've been high on Mississippi State all year. We love Mississippi State as well, but they've been so inconsistent in these big high-profile games. They've had chances to beat Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, and they fall every time. The good thing for them is they're playing Baylor in the first round. But again, Baylor, as bad as they've been and disappointing in a lot of ways, what happens if VJ Edgecombe decides, you know what, I'm a top 5 player in the draft. Let me go get buckets on a national stage. And all of a sudden he carries Baylor to an incredible run. Norchad Omier is playing like player of the year from the ACC type player when he's at Miami. You know what I'm saying? So like, that 8-9 matchup holds a lot of intrigue because what versions of these teams come out? And if they're the great versions of them, can they compete with Duke, especially if Duke has no Cooper Flag?
Couple things real quick. There's a reason that we don't get paid off of the first reactions that we make. Otherwise, Seth Davis would be unemployed. So there's a reason that we don't get paid based on our first reactions because it just is what it is. Now that I've had 24 hours to absorb this, yeah, I take back everything I said about the Duke.
Okay.
I think they do. I think they do. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. Last night I was like, no. I think Baylor. Unfortunately, I love Scott Drew. Talking about top 5 player, I think the bigger factor would be like Scott Drew's a top 5 coach in the country and just prepared. Like he's gonna have a team prepared, but like. People are starting to question, the fact that won a national championship and he's been like an 8 seed otherwise, 9 seed otherwise. So it's kind of weird. whatever. Mississippi State, I can't pick or against them at this point. Like, I've been wrong both directions this whole year. Like, they just royally screwed me. And so now, do I think they can beat Duke? Absolutely. I think they can beat Duke. You can't sit here and think, like, people go, oh, there's no way that this round of 32 games never going to happen. Like, it's the NCAA tournament, and these teams are here for a reason. There's no teams here that aren't supposed to be here.
Yep.
So that means they can beat Duke as good as
Duke.
Josh
Hubbard gets on a heater. Like,
bingo.
What are you going to do?
Whatever the case is, right? I wish we had time to lay everything out, but like, the point being is obviously Oregon, for Duke to go down, my point being, it's talking about cakewalk, is it would obviously take and I don't think Oregon wins either. So like, it would take, there's just too many things I think happen that it would affect Duke's walk, where we've seen that before, right? They played St. Peter's in the Elite Eight. Like, we've seen them kind of get opened up there, or Sweet 16, whatever year they played them. And you've seen that where Duke kind of quote unquote gets the cakewalk, but because other things fall kind of in their favor. And that's just part of March. Like, it just is what it is. I take back everything I said 24 hours ago. Duke is probably in the Elite Eight, and who they're playing, I think, is the question. I actually think they'll be playing St. Mary's.
Oh, that caught me off guard, because I think Vanderbilt's style.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, well, I love the spread out, the offensive basketball wins anymore, and that's why when we get to Houston, I'm so high on Houston right now, because they do have offense. I think Vanderbilt
does it. If Vandy does it, Edwards is a star. He'll be like a Sweet 16 darling. People are going to be falling in love. Guy that I loved at North Texas last year. Got to see him a handful of times in Charleston. That kid's a bucket.
Well, shoot, refresh my memory. The kid 2 years ago from Kansas State, small guard that went nuts.
Marquise Noel.
Jason Edwards could be Marquise Noel in this tournament if they go on a little run or win a game or two. I like Vanderbilt over St. Mary's. I think Alabama ultimately, obviously, gets them. I think VCU can get all the way to a Sweet 16 and play Alabama close. That defense, they've got athletes. I think they can negate some of what Alabama does, especially if Grant Nelson's not there. I think VCU beats BYU, beats Wisconsin in the second round, gets to Sweet 16, plays Alabama close. I hate doing chalk here. I hate being chalky, but Duke, Alabama is the best two teams in this region. They will match up. If Duke does not have Cooper Flagg, Alabama wins that game, goes back to Final Four. If Cooper plays, Duke's better. Duke beats Alabama. I will ride with that. For me, Duke comes out of the East, but it's all hinged on if Cooper Flagg plays or not.
I don't have good confidence in this region whatsoever, but yeah, I got Duke. I think we all got Duke. I got Duke getting out of this region. I think Duke plays. I could see any, honestly. I don't hate Trev's St. Mary's pick on the show we did yesterday. I picked the Mormons just because I wanted to be funny.
You believe that wholeheartedly, though, don't you? I mean, I know you said you're not confident. I know it's VCU, but like, you do believe like that there is a real case that they're in the Elite Eight.
Who? BYU?
BYU, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe any of those teams at the bottom. I think there's just so much variance in this region. I have zero confidence in the region. I could see BYU making it there, but in the end, I picked Wisconsin. I love John Tonchi.
Wow.
I just think he's one of the best players in the country, and I think they're going to find a way. They shoot the ball really well. They play within each other. They're experienced. They're old.
Got
some free throw line. They're the best free throw shooting team in the country.
Yep.
I don't know. I could see BYU doing it. I could see Wisconsin. I don't hate Trev St. Mary's pick. I just kind of think St. Mary's gets out athleted by Alabama, but like I could see them beating Alabama if they really slowed that game down. So yeah.
Let me be abundantly clear. I was not picking them to make the Final Four. I don't know if that was how it came off. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. Whoa. I do think that Duke will be playing St. Mary's in the Elite Eight. To answer the question, I'll be short and sweet because we got two more regions and Lenny somehow in the next 45 minutes. But
we'll get to it.
I have Duke. It's that simple. John Shire's been to back-to-back Elite Eights with the same exact record. And that, like, this is the year they just, if they're not, we all agree they're a minimum in the Elite Eight. So I have Duke. I think they're incredible. I think they'll be a very strong chance to go down the nets.
They got a great draw, if we're being honest. That they get to stay close to. I mean, they're playing in Raleigh, then they'll go to East Newark, which is huge Duke territory. That favors Duke for a run, but to me, it all depends if Cooper Flagg is back before an eventual matchup with Alabama in that Elite Eight, because I don't think they can win without him against a team like Alabama. Let's go down to the Midwest. The third number one overall seed here. Houston resides in the Midwest. This region leads in Indianapolis, which excites me because there's matchups at potential that I could be going to Indianapolis to at least see some open practice and maybe get some cool content. Shout out our guys our guys. I got to cover them and see them and talk to some of the players and coaches from SIUE, 2 weeks ago at this point now, or I guess last weekend, in the OVC tournament championship. That is a fun team. They have no shot against Houston, I don't think. I'm sorry, got Cougars. First time in the NCAA tournament, Houston, you're about to see the real Cougars, I think, because Houston's going to maul them, I think. Great run, though, man. You got there. You didn't have to play in Dayton, so you get a full experience, OVC champs, but that's a brutal one. This one intrigues me because we assume Gonzaga in the 8-9 is coming out and beating Georgia. You guys know my thoughts and feelings on Georgia all year long. This team at their peak, Silas Demeries took a huge leap from a freshman to sophomore. Blue Kane, when he's rolling, is a secondary ball handler and a knockdown shooter. And they've got Asa Newell that can compete with Graham Ike and really give him problems because he's more athletic. He doesn't have the strength that Graham Ike does, but he's going to pull Ike away from the rim and make him guard, which opens up some of those middle drives for a guy like Silas Demery. I think this is much closer than what people that are the common kind of college basketball fan, they'll see Gonzaga and be like, oh, this is a cakewalk. I think Georgia's style can really give Gonzaga fits for 40 minutes, although I think Gonzaga wins this game. When you guys look at the Midwest here, what do you see? Some matchups in the first round that interest you? Just kind of talk me through it here.
I'll go. So, man, I think Kentucky got an incredible draw. I'll just take the point from you. You texted us last night. This is truly like, I'm just going to say this right now. If you got UNCW, you were screwed. Like, I just thought that was a win waiting to happen because of just the guys that were on that team last year. I made that point, not in front of you yet, but I think you got absolutely lucky not having to play UNCW. I really do. But just in general, I think that really opens up for Kentucky. Troy, I'm not discrediting anything Cross has done, but I just, unless it's Utah State just randomly killing you and like I just don't know. I mean, obviously Kentucky, Tennessee, like that's a coin flip. I just think it's just a nice little run there. If they take care of their business, I know there's uncertainty. I know there's health. I'm really picking a team that I've had defensive questions for all year, and I just don't think any of that changes. But at the same time, though, I just think matchup wise and stylistically, I think that they're bad. They're better than Illinois, without a doubt. They're better than UCLA, Utah State. Like, it's going to be really coming down to that Tennessee matchup there in the Sweet 16. I think that'll be really important if you believe in Kentucky, quote unquote, making a longer run. I would include the Elite Eight in that being part of that. And then otherwise, like just from overall thoughts here, High Point's beating Purdue. I haven't thought about it otherwise since the moment the bracket came out. And then McNeese Clemson, I'm going to have to think really hard about because of the injury to Dylan Hunter. I think that's going to really, really hurt. I know Johnny's comment here. Yeah. But Dylan Hunter, like everyone's going to pick McNeese. It's going to be the pretty funny thing. Obviously, the alma mater, it's a really interesting storyline. It's probably the storyline of this region and playing against his alma mater, the coaching stuff, et cetera. Wade to State. But the McNeese depth is going to be really important in that game. And Dylan Hunter not being there for Clemson is going to hurt them.
Yeah. I disagree with the point on Kentucky's run being easy. I think they should beat Troy. I think the 11 seed, could give Kentucky problems. Texas is a team that's already beaten Kentucky this year. And we're talking about a Kentucky team, all things considered. Lamont Butler has made 1 3, I believe, since January 22nd. I'd have to double check that, make sure that's correct. But my guy Christian Ojackson tweeted that out, and I don't remember the exact date. But he's not playing his best basketball. He's not fully healthy. They need him fully healthy, just straight up to kind of play the way they are because they also don't have Kirk Creasy. He's been out for a while. How does that work? I think the 11, whoever it is, either Xavier or Texas, they both have guys that can disrupt the Jackie Jonas ball screen. So I do think whoever that is, I think they do go out there and beat an Illinois team that I don't really love and is not playing their best basketball lately. Then if they play Kentucky, I think both those teams can beat Kentucky. The way Xavier plays, I would be less confident if it's Xavier than if it's Texas. And God, I'm not confident. Honestly, all those teams I'm not confident in at all. God, what a shit little bracket, like little 4 bracket. Oh God. Yeah. God, Texas. I just said the words confident in Texas, but like their roster is probably the most talented of all of these teams in this little bubble, which like Tremont Mark is awesome. Trey Johnson's the best player in this little bubble. He is.
Yep.
Aiden Shedrick's a good big. Arthur Kaluma's a 5th-year guy. He's been good all 5 years of college. Not great, good all 5 years of college. Like, I don't know, man. Oh my God.
Can we address this really quick?
Yeah, I pulled it up early. Go ahead. Yeah.
I I'm curious what you guys think, because I think Houston's going to kill Gonzaga. I think people are. Look, Gonzaga, Ken Pom, I hope that people find their soulmate who loves them as much as Ken Pom loves Gonzaga. I hope that's a real thing that happens for folks. He's had them in the top 15 all freaking year. Like, I get that changes, but like over time and maybe adjust some of the weight. They've obviously played better basketball as of late. But there's a reason we've doubted them. Like, there's a reason last year, like, they just beat McNeese because they were the better team. But like, I just don't. Obviously, doubting Mark Few, doubting Sweet 16 is like all things considered. Like, you can throw all the historical data at me on this matchup you want. I think Houston's going to kill them. I think Houston's going to be like, this is the best Houston team we've ever seen under Sampson. We say that every single year. And there's no reason that they can't beat them. Like, it just, I think this is insanity.
We talked about that when I finally became a believer, because I always thought, obviously, Houston was really good, but I told you 5-6 weeks ago that Houston has really won me over because of the offense. I always thought that was their Achilles heel in these type of games. Look, if we're making a point for how Gonzaga can beat them, look, Graham Ike could go nuts. As tough as Houston is in the interior, Graham Ike is probably the best big in that matchup for sure, I would think. And then Gonzaga does something they've not done all year, is get hot from three. Like, that would be the case, but Houston's so hard to do that against. And if you remember, gentlemen, when we did our preseason, right before the season start with Coach Pear, we all gave kind of our bold predictions. One of mine was Gonzaga's streak of Sweet 16s come to an end. I think we're going to be proven right there. Trey Johnson, there's something intriguing that says, could he carry Texas on a magical run? Get by Xavier, goes nuts against Illinois, goes nuts presumably against Kentucky. There's something intriguing about that type of player on the stage, just going for 30 every night and carrying Texas by the collar and dragging them to an Elite Eight, to where Texas or Houston ultimately beats them, I think. How about this? We assume Tennessee gets to the Sweet 16 to maybe play Kentucky. What if UCLA gets them?
UCLA Utah State, I'd be worried about more, actually.
Well, that's fair. You mean getting Tennessee? Okay, that's fair. I thought. Yeah. UCLA plays really good defense. They play in the half court. They're kind of mirror images of one another. And I think UCLA grinded out, maybe in the past in the Pac-12 where it's more athletic and up and down, but they're used to now a season in the Big Ten style. I think they're built to compete and beat Tennessee in the second round.
No, I have Tennessee at the Sweet 16 without really much thought, unless it's Utah State, just because I like the Aggies that much. But if DeRosa is backing down from the Aggies now, then we should all run away, because that is Aggie land believer number one right there.
Tennessee still has the same issues we've talked about. We thought they changed at the beginning of the year, but same thing. If Lanier's not hitting, and Jordan Gainey went nuts yesterday, but that's so few and far between anymore. Tennessee's offense can really bog down at times. They can really bog down, and that's what worries me.
I want to give my take on the Aggies. I've loved this team all year. The one thing with them and the way you beat them is they run this really intricate offense. It's beautiful, aesthetically pleasing. It's great. The one way you beat them is you move them off their spots a little bit, just a little bit, and they're done. UCLA is very physical. They're going to move them off their spots. I hate it. I'm going to, on the record, I want Utah State to win this game. If there's any team I'm rooting for to win the national title, it's Utah State. Just, I picked them all season. It's like, why not? I'd look so smart. I'd victory lap everything, and I'd completely ignore this clip and pretend it never existed. I think UCLA beats them pretty bad, and I'm kind of with Josh. I think UCLA can make a run here. I think the way this region stacks up for their matchups, I think is great. Because, Josh mentioned it. They're kind of a mirror image of Tennessee. Fleener's not going. If you can put Kobe Johnson on him, kind of slow him down. Sebastian Mack is a bigger guard versus Kai Ziegler. I'd be interested to see how that works. I think Bilodeau could kind of get buckets. Space Akpar out just a little bit. I don't know. I don't like this UCLA team much either. I don't believe in them a ton, but I think the matchups, I think it kind of stacks in their favor. And I think also they'd be a really tough matchup for Kentucky for kind of the same reasons I think they're a bad matchup for Utah State. They're going to push those guys off their spots.
It's true.
So, I think I picked Tennessee when I made a bracket, but I'm going to go back, look at it. UCLA might be a team I picked to lose to Houston, the Elite Eight.
I don't remember how Josh, you worded it earlier, just exactly. So paraphrase me a little bit here. Mm-hmm. But I would disagree. I think you made something alluding to the fact of when Chaz Lanier is not on, whatever. The point being is Tennessee, at the same time, was in the SEC championship game just yesterday or the day before. And they are 8-2 in their last 10. Their only losses are to Florida by the way, 86-77. After what Florida did to Alabama, I think we should feel better about Tennessee because of how close that Florida game was. Like, I know the score kind of at one point, Florida kind of got away from it. Tennessee kind of got back into it. I think that game alone, we should feel better about them. The fact they were there, first of all, in what people were calling a conference tournament harder than the NCAA tournament, which I think is total lunacy. But their other loss was at Ole Miss by 2. And then before that was Kentucky on February 11th. That's it. Other than that, they've beaten Florida 64-44. That was Florida's last real bad loss, was 64-44 to Tennessee. So I completely disagree on the Vols part of it. But yes, the point about Lanier is correct. It's just, I think there's enough now that we see that they're not so Dalton Connect reliant. I think that I think I'm pushing back a little bit on that more than anything. But again, UCLA, the matchups, like both of you guys are right on that. I just think that at this point, eventually tournament experience might have to matter. And I think Ziegler and a guy like that, I just think that there's just enough going for them that they're just talent-wise better than the teams around them. I think that really is a big advantage.
Yeah, I think I will be picking Tennessee to beat UCLA, but I think that game could be close. And then I'd pick Tennessee over whoever makes it.
It could be very similar to Oregon's double. Who did Oregon play last year that we all were like, it would be. I think it'd be that game again. Like, I think it would be that kind of game. I'm with you on that.
So I didn't say anything about Kentucky. I'll say it as we wrap this up. I think everything you guys have said is right. My worries, get by Troy first. Get that monkey off your back. I do worry a little bit about Illinois because they're kind of mirror images of the way Kentucky wants to play. And if they're hot, man, this could be a high explosive offensive game. If it's Xavier, you worry about kind of what they want to do more physicality wise. I would like to think if Lamont is healthy enough to get through these games, that matters. Kentucky's defense we've talked about in recent weeks. A month ago was 112 in Ken Palm. They're down to around like 54, 55 now. Alabama game not excluding. That was an embarrassment. I think if they can get to Sweet 16 and get Tennessee for a third time, the old adage is it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Well, Alabama beat Kentucky 3 times. Duke's beat North Carolina 3 times. It can be done. And I think style-wise, it's bad, whether it be UCLA or Tennessee. Same thing. Spread them out. Get them going. They can't match point for point. Those type of teams have to keep low possession, half court. I ultimately think if Kentucky can go on a run, they get to Elite 8 in Indianapolis. But I just think there's no better team than Houston with their offense, with Emmanuel Sharp, with LJ Cryer getting buckets, and their defense is extraordinary. To me, Houston's coming out of this region. Whether you want it to be Tennessee, Kentucky, UCLA, Texas, Illinois, it doesn't matter. Houston's going to the Final Four, in my opinion. But I do think they beat Kentucky to get there. What's your guys' kind of thoughts on that coming out of the Midwest?
Trevor, your mic is muted. I will go first. Milos Uzan has been awesome for Houston too.
Great, dude. He's been so good.
So good. But for Kentucky, I don't know. I just don't have Kentucky's team I feel like I have a great read on, so I don't really know. If it's Texas, I could see Texas. I don't know. Oh my God, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not particularly confident, but I'm probably going to pick Kentucky to lose to Tennessee. You mentioned the lose to the team 3 times part. I think there's definitely credence to the point that Kentucky's just a bad matchup for Tennessee. But if that matchup happened again, we don't know if Lamont's 100%. I think Tennessee could learn a lot from those first few games. And I think they'd be more used to playing a team like Kentucky, teams that really can space you out. I think they'd have enough time to game plan to adjust enough to where I think they could win. But yeah, I'm either picking Tennessee or UCLA to make it to the Sweet 16. I don't know which yet.
Lamont played only one half in those 2 games against Tennessee. Remember, he played that first half in the game in Rupp, tore his shoulder up again, and he was out. He only played in one half of the 4 possible. They got wins. I know Jax played, so it's different.
On the other side, maybe that's just a tough matchup for Ziegler because he's guarding someone much bigger than him.
It's true.
Could go the other way.
Could be. Do you have Houston coming out of this in the Midwest?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I do as well. I was muted because my dog pulled my mic out of the socket. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. I thought I lost it for good. I was starting to be really upset. So I have Houston as well. I think the more we talk through that, and I was listening part of it, the more I think about it is I just would be worried too. Like I know it just feels like Kentucky's become so dependent on Lamont Butler. And like I know they've won games without him, but like your whole tournament hinges on him. And I just feel like that's a little bit too much pressure. I believe in Mark Pope as a coach, though, so I think some of that might balance out. The problem is he is that important for you. And he's only hit one of the biggest shots in the last decade in NCAA tournament. It's almost like he's been there before and done that. And so he being Butler, for those confused, it was kind of cool to see that. I have Houston. I mean, why, guys? Why would I ever back down from the Cougars now? Like, if anything, I've got to just put the pedal through the floor. And dude, this is just this team. For them to be better, like for them to just go out and win, like it's reaching a point of insanity with them that like I truly don't even think people are starting to realize like the nature of impact. And I know we're waiting on Lenny, so I have a stat about Houston I want to pull up, and part of the reason of my belief, if I can get that here quickly. Houston obviously won the Big 12 this year, as we're about to introduce Lenny. Houston won the Big 12, and they're the second team ever and the first in over a century to win the regular season conference title in the first two seasons in a major conference. Idaho did it in 1921-22. By the way, this is not some team going from like the Big South and winning, the Big 12. Like, this is a Big 12 team that won in the Big 12 after being in the American. Houston's done something that's only happened in the modern era, never since 1921 once.
It's crazy. Crazy stat. The Midwest will be a region of possibility. Houston's the favorite, but there is a lot of quality teams coming out. We are happy to be joined yet again. We saw him a couple of weeks ago. We are happy to have him back. He told us he would come back if they got it done in the ASUN tournament. They went and got it done. It was a close one, but they got it done. We're happy to bring back the head coach of the Lipson Bison, head coach Lenny Akov. Coach, I didn't want you to feel like we put the pressure on you a couple weeks ago when I said, you know what, I think you guys are going to do it. You're going to go to the tournament. You may get a win. People are loving this team. You went and did it. You're going dancing. You're the 14th seed. You get to play Iowa State. Talk us through the emotions. That was an incredible ASUN tournament title game, by the way. Talk us through all of that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. When you asked Josh, I said, if I can do a couple of these things today, I'm doing you guys, because you've been with us when we weren't the most in demand. So I don't want to get amnesia. I'm a big believer. Hey, loyalty is a two-way street. So, but no, it was the ASUN final was an incredible game. North Alabama played great. They've got a fantastic team, and it was a high-level game in a high-level environment. It was a hard sellout, over 5,000 people. It was just a rock fight back and forth. And we were fortunate to figure out a way to make a few plays. Joe Anderson was incredible down the stretch, our little point guard. And then, when you win it, there's just so much emotion. There wasn't a dry eye on the court. There wasn't a dry eye in the locker room. I mean, there's a lot to it. And as you guys know, you love basketball, and it's quite a journey to get there. And when you get to that end, just to push it across the finish line is a big deal. So we've enjoyed the last week. Obviously, last night we found out who we're playing. Everything ramps up, and now you're not preparing for a faceless opponent. You're preparing for Iowa State. You know who you're playing, and you can actually start putting some teeth into your prep.
Well, Coach, I text you right after when the ASUN title game, talked to you about Will Anderson was phenomenal. Will Pruitt made some big plays down the stretch there. But let's talk about the tournament. You guys will tip off on Friday, I think at 1:30-ish. It says on TNT there. But you're going against an Iowa State team that at their best was considered one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country. We find out last night, apparently from Coach Otzelberger, that Keshawn Gilbert, one of the better guards in the country, will not be available for this. When you look at Iowa State, the way they're top 15 in the nation and forcing turnovers, your ball club is top 25 in the nation and not turning it over on the turnover percentage on offense. So we've just talked about this matchup 20 minutes ago. It feels like something's got to give there. When you see the matchup and everything surrounding it, what are you telling your guys early about, hey, they're going to put a lot of pressure on us, try to turn us over. If we're consistent and stay together, we've got a shot here. Kind of what's the message to the team after you find all this out?
Yeah, when you turn on the film, turn on the video and watch them, their effort, their toughness, their physicality, it just jumps through the screen at you. I mean, they're a top 15 team in the country, top 10 team in the country defensively, top 15 in turnovers forced. And what they do, they really, really test your fundamentals and your foundation. I mean, like they're going to put a ton of stress on our foundation. And that's what we talked about today. We just have to be really tough with the basketball. We have to trust what we work on every single day. That, when you get to these games, it's day one stuff. I mean, it's no smoke and mirrors. Can we protect the basketball? Can we get good looks at it? We get it moving. When we get good shots. I mean, we're going to cut it loose. I mean, we're not going to go up there and play not to lose. I mean, we're going to go up there, and if we're open, we're going to shoot. And I think the thing we have to do is you just have to understand there's going to be a lot of ebb and flow to the game, and they just keep coming. And I know they're down one of their guys, but I mean, guys, they are loaded. I mean, I watched their entire game at Thanksgiving week in Maui against Auburn. I'm like, that's a national championship game. And I know that they might have had the results the last few weeks they wanted, but he's a fantastic coach. I study coaches. I study leadership. I read a great article about him back in the fall, and they're about the right stuff. And so it's quite a challenge. They travel really well. I mean, Kentucky's up there too. You could have Carolina there. Illinois will be there. So you've got a lot of geographically friendly schools, and they said Iowa State's bought up a lot of the tickets. So it'll be a real challenge for our team, but we just have to trust who we are, because at this time of year, you can't outthink the room. You just got to keep it simple and hope your guys can step up and make some plays.
Coach, first of all, thank you again for the time. As always, appreciate the comments at the beginning there. I'd love to sit here and talk about the ASUN tournament the whole time, but we're not going to do that today. You've got an NCAA tournament game you got to play, but we'll do that another time.
Sure.
So, question for you. You mentioned the emotion. You mentioned there's obviously a bit of that waiting time. You guys were the first tournament or one of the first tournaments to conclude. And, you're going to kind of, you mentioned faceless opponent. Like the part I really like to find out is like, I think a lot of the people who watch college basketball understand this, but you find out Sunday at 6:00, 6:30, whatever, right? And you're playing them in less than a week.
Yep.
Like it's a real quick turnaround. You know that. And so talk about what this, again, I said this to Coach earlier. You're spending your time talking to guys like us, right? The assistants are obviously doing a ton of work right now. Video guys, GAs, they do a lot of hard work. Just talk to us and people who maybe aren't aware of the process, what it's like for the next 3 or 4 days. How do you get a team prepped? What's some of that behind the scenes work that goes into that?
Well, I think the first thing is, this is the first time I've gone through it. And I'll be honest with you guys, we probably needed a week to recalibrate.
Really?
We did. I mean, we've really shortened our bench. I mean, we're playing 6 or 7 guys, and we needed some time off. And because we lost at Eastern Kentucky about 3 weeks ago, and we knew we probably had to win out to get the number 1 seed. So we've been kind of playing must-win tournament basketball for a while. And not only does it drain you physically, it drains you emotionally. I mean, it just takes a lot out of you. And so this past week was good because we kind of did a self-scout, and we just spent some time worrying about us. But to your point, like last night at 5:15 or whatever, when we found out who we're playing, it's just like that thing went into overdrive. And, we went right away to try to get as much analytics as we could on them and try to get as much information as we could on them. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to tell our story about Lipscomb basketball. And so I've been on a lot of calls and a lot of interviews today. And like I said, I told Josh I was definitely going to do this. And, so I've been doing a lot of that, but I have watched them. And the biggest thing for us is I really believe this. I don't think you need to overcoach a big game. You need to be prepared, but you can get information overload. You can get paralysis by analysis. And, at the end of the day, it comes down to, can we get our guys good shots? That's really what it is. And then can we keep them from getting good shots? And a big part of that is taking care of the ball and not have – everybody talks about live ball turnovers. You can't have shot turnovers. You can't drive in there and try to score over 4 people and they block it and there they go and it's a dunk fest on the other end. So trying to get enough information. Now we already have, I can give you all the numbers you want on them. I can tell you exactly where they are on every Ken Palm, you can hit a button and you see every shot every kid's taken all year, but the players don't need all that. We need to keep the main thing. And I think it's really important, like when you're a big underdog, which we are, is you need to go with the right mindset. Like we go in there, we're not going to be perfect, and we don't have to be perfect. If you go in there chasing that, you're not going to play well. I mean, need to give the guys freedom to make some mistakes. And you know what? The only thing that really matters is the next possession. That's it. That's the only thing that matters. And I'm telling you, the longer I've coached, that's gospel to me. I mean, you just can't live in the past, and you got to get on and get moving. It's a lot like life. And, we want to respond. We don't want to react. We just need to make sure that we have a good mindset. But we found out a lot about them. They're really good. I've been extremely impressed with them on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, Coach, thank you for the very kind words in the beginning. One thing that I think stood out to all of us from your interview last time you did with us was how you mentioned how much you love this group. And also just going into it, these guys, like you mentioned, you're going 6-7 deep. All those guys are experienced. You're juniors, seniors. Talk about your team. Obviously, if you want to talk about how much you really love this group to more people here now that you're on the national stage, 1 and 2. I mean, how do you think those guys' experienced? Do you think that's going to really help you guys as you face, a team that is looked at as very, very good? And you've mentioned how good Iowa State is, but It's a challenge you guys have probably faced before.
Here's the thing. I believe this with all my heart. If it doesn't go well, and it may not go well, it's not going to be because the moment's too big. I'm totally convinced of that. I mean, I trust our guys emotionally. They're really strong-minded kids. We're going to have some ball bounce our way, and we know that, and we're going to have to hope they don't have their best day, and we have our best day. But if it doesn't go well, it's not because the moment's too big. I think our guys will be confident, and they're tough now. I mean, they'll run right to the fight. They will. They will run right to the fight. And now we might get hit right in the mouth, but we'll keep coming back. And but I think the other thing, I'm glad you brought that up because, all right, we're playing 7 guys. That's what we've played in the tournament. We've got one kid that's hurt, that's out for the year, Dylan Faulkner, which was a huge loss for us. But that means we've got 5 scholarship guys that aren't getting in the game. And you need to understand, every coach needs to understand this. Those 5 guys have as much to do with the chemistry and the culture and the temperature in your locker room as the guys that are playing. Because those guys could be malcontents. They could be a problem. Now, look, they want to play, and they're not happy they're not playing. You're not human, and I'd want them to want to play. Their parents probably aren't happy, and I understand all that. But they have been all in for the team. And, I feel like every kid in that locker room is putting every ounce of energy into winning. And that's what's made it fun. That's when you just have kids that how many sacrifices they've made and what they've given up in order for us to get to where we are. Those are the kind of kids you pull for.
Yeah, absolutely. Trev, did you have one more thing? Because I know we got to let Coach go here before I start to wrap him up.
Yeah, look, we asked players this. We actually asked, we had Liberty's point guard on earlier today. Coach, let's be honest for a second. It's your first NCAA tournament as a head coach. Talk about how cool that is. And just like for you personally, spending so much time. When we had you on before, I think the first time I had you here, we talked about like just your rise and just sticking it out through the lower ranks of college basketball, and like to be here and put this much time in and to say, you know what, like no matter what happens, I'm playing in the NCAA tournament as a head coach. How freaking cool is that?
Well, one thing is I'm honored to be on a show that Colin Porter's on. My goodness gracious. Yeah. We recruited the heck out of that boy. And
we can bring him back and tell him that. I'm sure he does.
Richie's a dear friend. They got the jump on us. They got that dude to reclass. And
wow.
Wow. Colin was awesome on here, man. First time getting to meet him. He was great.
He's a well of a player. I'll tell you what, they are good. I watched both their games weekend. They are some kind of good. But here's what I would say to that is obviously it is a thrill, and I would be much less than honest if I didn't acknowledge that. But here's what you don't ever want to get away from. The reason that I've been blessed with these opportunities is because of all the kids that played for me in NAIA and Division II. And I promise you, we went to 11 NCAA tournaments at Huntsville, Division II tournaments. We're in 2 Elite Eights. We're in 5 Sweet 16s. And I wanted to win those games every bit as much as I want to win on Friday. I did. And like, guys, I probably had, 12 to 15 of my former players were here last Sunday when we played North Alabama. And to be able to share that with them, and they're crying on the court. and how many texts I got from them and just saying, "Hey, coach, it's just we're a part of this," and they are, and so that's really important to me. I mean, I've been so many people that have been nice and reached out, but anything as you guys continue to grow what you're doing, don't forget the people that help you get your start. Like that's anybody that has great opportunities. It's because a lot of other people made sacrifices, and those kids mean so much to me. And just like every kid that's played for me since I've been here at Lipscomb, but it's a thrill. And one day when I ride off in the sunset, hopefully that's going to be a little while from now. But we always got to play in the NCAA tournament, and now you want to go play well.
Yeah,
Coach. We always try to keep that motto, keep everybody who's helped us, keep them close and connected. We appreciate that. Just same way we appreciate you. Best of luck. Think about this to that last point. You're going to be in the NCAA tournament and the same site up in Marquette with, you mentioned Kentucky is going to be up there, and Iowa State and Illinois, and whether it be Texas and Xavier, and enjoy it. Take a moment. I hope you tell your team, take a moment to enjoy this. It is a special time of year. And like we always say when we're breaking down these games, when the underdog, if you can keep it close in the final 4 minutes, the neutral crowd will be Lipscomb fans all of a sudden. And if you're close in the final 4, you got a shot. Just keep it close, Coach.
Game pressure. That's what you got to.
Exactly right. Best of luck, Coach.
Thanks,
we'll be pulling for you. We will see you later on, Coach. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
Awesome. He's awesome every time, dude.
Can I just say it's amazing? Like, and I would have said this to his face too. I think it's cool that he just knows the amount of Sweet 16 and Elite Eights off the top of his head.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff I just cannot remember. No, I can't say I've ever been in his position before. But like, dude, he just was like, yeah, this is Elite Eight. This is about a Sweet 16s. Like, that's just pretty sick. I'm glad we got to see the human part of it a little bit there.
Dude, he's awesome. He's been awesome, Michael. He's been great.
And you know how much he loves this group is the thing.
Yep.
Like that comes through. And I think that's the best part. And the fact that he went through and didn't just thank this group, thank the groups of past that said, yeah, you were a part of this. Like he had his former players there. That's awesome. That's building culture. That was Lipscomb's winning that first game. I want Lipscomb to win that first game.
Yeah, buddy. I like it. I picked them. Look,
we all were kind of on it, you know.
Look, hey, I learned my lesson when Coach Parra kind of gave me a little gruff for it a couple weeks ago, but I didn't want to tell him this time. Hey, I picked you guys. I picked you to beat Iowa State, so you got to go out there and do it. Look, I mean, they're making us blush today. Coach Parra at the top of the show, the Liberty media person telling us how great that was, and then Coach Acuff putting us over. Gentlemen, it can't get better than that. And by the way, Phil, our guy Phil's in the show. Love that. 571 viewers, man. Let's finish out the final region here. Down in the West bracket, we've got the number 1 seed Florida Gators, who have just been, to me, over the course of the last month and a half, they're the team that you look at that I think has no visible weaknesses on their roster. You want great guard play. They've got as great a guard play as you're going to find in college basketball. You want great role players. Thomas Howe. Like and then they got Micah Hanlogton back. They've got incredible depth. They're top 10 in defensive efficiency. They have no weaknesses. There's nothing you can pinpoint on Florida and think, yeah, but if they don't do this well, we can get them. Guys, they have no weaknesses. And now they're the 1 seed. They've rightfully earned that final 4th 1 seed. You look at the region, though. UConn, the 8 seed, Oklahoma, the 9 seed. I know UConn, back-to-back national champions. They've still got a lot of talent. You've got Danny Hurley on the sideline. Anything can happen this time of year. They've proven it. But we talked about Trey Johnson getting hot and carrying a team. What if Jeremiah Fears gets red hot and carries Oklahoma on a run here? I mean, when you guys look at this region, how about the bottom part? Providence, Italian restaurants are going to love this, where you put Calipari, Patino, Providence together. Italian restaurants are about to do big business in Providence this upcoming week and weekend. When you look at the storylines, the region as a whole, what do you guys see, and why is Florida just clearly the best team in this region?
Yeah, to your point about Oklahoma, like why can't Fears do this? Whatever. Well, yeah, because they play Florida in the second round. You know, like that's like what kills that. I know exactly. I've done podcasts long enough with you. I know exactly what you were trying to say. it's just like, oh, Oklahoma, this is that. I'm like, yeah, cool. They have to play Florida. Like, it's a nice consolation prize to congrats. You beat the 2-time national championship team. And that would be the storyline we'd all be excited about.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, by the way, you have to play Florida. Yeah. Who, by the way, was the last 2-time national champion. Just kind of a crazy fact there.
There you go. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Let's just address the elephant in the room. Well, actually, two things. First thing, Colorado State's favored over Memphis. I want to get to that at some point in the next few minutes. That's a Michael thing, just talking about the favorites and stuff. Mm-hmm. The elephant in the room is that Bill Self and John Calipari play each other, and then Rick Pitino has to beat a team that beats trash cans up when they go on to win their first March Madness run ever. And then they have to somehow, Rick Pitino has to play either Bill Self or John Calipari, who, by the way, from everything I understand, is the three of those people don't really like each other. So let's just start with that. That's the elephant in the room. I think there's a ton of fun upsets. I think there's a ton of fun, weird things in this bracket. But let's be honest, I'm circling Missouri to Omaha, just that entire circle right there. And wherever those games are and whatever time they'll be, I will be there.
Interesting.
Just anywhere from 6 to 15. From 6 to 15, that entire part of the bracket.
Yeah, there's some very intriguing matchups. You talk about upsets, Michael. Like, obviously, Drake is the darling, right? For mid-majors this year, they're the darling. Their defense, how does it hold up against Missouri's high, potent offense when they're rolling the athletes from Missouri? It's been a while since Drake's beaten. I mean, it's been months since they've beaten Vanderbilt. They've not really seen an athletic team that can get up and down like Missouri in quite a while. Does that affect them? UNC Wilmington, Trev, I know, I mean, as great as Tech's been this year with JT Toppin and company, I know you love Wilmington to give them a ball game. Kansas, Arkansas, you already laid it out, Bill Self and John Calipari. Michael, talk us through the bottom part of this bracket.
This is incredible.
Sam's comment: Cal versus Pitino plus RJ Lewis, the most representation UMass is getting in the tournament,
or in the last 10 years. It's amazing. It's the best.
I love it.
Great stuff, Sam.
Yeah, but the bottom of this region, I mean, this rules. Yeah, I didn't expect to do this. I don't think I'm going to pick Drake to win a tournament game. I really like Missouri, and I think Missouri can speed him up, and I think Missouri's going to force turnovers. Yeah. I mean, Kansas, Arkansas, St. John's. I think Arkansas could provide some matchup problems with St. John's, honestly.
Boogie Flan's back. Yeah.
Boogie Flan's back, but also both Avicic and, oh my God, who's the Tennessee transfer? Jonas Adu. They can protect the rim, and St. John's just beelines to the rim. Like, I think that's a tough matchup there. I don't think they will play Arkansas, however. I think Kansas gets them, but imagine we get this. Imagine Rick Pitino is playing in the Elite Eight, in the West region, of course. And to get to the Final Four, he's got to play his former guard at Iona, Walter Clayton, who is so good. Walter Clayton is so good that we forget that his first name is freaking Walter.
I saw that. Was it you that said that? Was that you that tweeted that?
It was not me that said that. No, I wish I was that. I wish I was that.
It was so good. It was awesome.
Is this the region I mentioned, I think, back in the East region about unpredictability and upsets? Trev, I know you said that there was another one that you were looking at. Is this the region? Because there's potential Grand Canyon could get Maryland, Colorado State over Memphis, Drake maybe beats Missouri if they can slow the game down, Wilmington over Tech. Like, higher digit seeds have potentials to make it to the second round and beyond in this region, maybe more than the others.
No, it was the Midwest for me. It was that East cluster. But no, to your point, like everyone's probably going to pick Drake. Everyone's probably going to pick Arkansas. Everyone's probably going to pick Colorado State's Grand Canyon. Like, to your point that even if I don't believe it, there is some strong potential here. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas, Arkansas. Look, that's the headliner of this region in round one. Like, if you're talking, it's going to be prime time on Thursday night, 7 p.m. or 7:10 on CBS for a reason. Bill Self, John Calipari, two teams who struggled. Two teams that's had high NIL, Kansas preseason number one. They've got all these history together. Mm-hmm. It should be interesting for that whole entire game, and the winner likely gets Rick Pitino. I mean, look, there's a part of me that really wants, because the hatred is real. If you talk to people who know these two gentlemen, Pitino and Cal, I don't care what they say in front of a camera, there's hatred there. There's a part of me that wants to see these two duke it out in Providence. An Italian-American what's that, like a culture center, however you want to say that, up in the Northeast. That will go wild. Yeah. Epicenter, thank you.
Yeah.
Look,
Talent's very hate. Let me tell you that. And let me tell you also, Rick Pitino's back at Providence. That's a school that he coached at.
Tuck to the Final Four, yeah.
I believe it's the only school he's coached at where he didn't win the league conference title, too. I think that stat is official now that St. John's just won, as my pen just flew out.
Looking at this, Florida is amazing. Whether it be UConn or Oklahoma, I don't think it matters too much.
UConn,
I think,
by the way, it's going to be UConn.
You think it'll be? I think you're right.
UConn is the three best players on the floor.
You said 4 last night, and I think you're right still.
Really? So you don't think
Fears Ball, Alex Caravan, Jeremiah Fears is awesome, but he's hot and cold. And I think Hassan Diarra is how old is Hassan Diarra? Like 26, 25, 37?
Never really
all
know.
the same. That point in college basketball, it's all the same. Yeah.
But the point being that Florida to me comes out of the top. I just don't think they're going to be a challenge. I will say this, and I was talking to Johnny at work and a couple other people at work. They were asking me about this. I know Memphis is an upset favorite with Colorado State. If Tyrese Hunter plays, then this is a huge if. We've talked all year about they've got guards as good as anybody, not named Florida. There's a world where we get Memphis and Florida in the Sweet 16, and that's a hell of a matchup because Memphis will defend their tough Dame Danger, running the floor, getting a rebound, defensive rebound, running the floor and one-man fast breaking now. I think Memphis could give Florida a game before Florida ultimately pulls away because the guards can make shots and their defense is tough enough to give Florida enough issues to make it close at the end. I think that could be an intriguing matchup if we got that. And of course, if Hunter's healthy. But who do you got? Is it Florida and St. John's? Winner goes to the Final Four, or do you have somebody else?
Really quick on the Memphis thing, though. Memphis has already beaten teams on a neutral floor, just like Florida.
That's right.
So
another thing on the Memphis thing, though, if Dane Danger tries to go full court against Florida, coast to coast one-man fast break, that is a turnover waiting to happen.
Yep.
Before we answer your ultimate, who's playing the Elite Eight in the Final Four question, I do think there's one team that we haven't talked about at all that I think can make this upper part of this region a little weird, just because I think they have the best starting 5 out of that group, and it's probably Maryland.
I agree.
I hate Maryland second to Carolina, but my God, they're called the Crab 5 for a reason. Okay, this is a dope starting lineup, and ultimately, even Lenny I'm not speaking for him necessarily here, but he kind of alluded to it. It's they kind of don't need 12 guys. It's you kind of just play your best 6, 7, 8 guys, and some of the best teams we've ever seen go on a run, with famous names with 5, have won big games in March Madness. Obviously the most famous one being the Fab 5. But the point being is Maryland matches up really well against Grand Canyon. I think Memphis would be really, I actually think they would rather play Colorado State as hot as they are. I think that they would be a better matchup there. I think Derek Queen would eat Colorado State's front court alive. That Nick Clifford, Derek Queen matchup would be incredible. And then at that point, you're probably just assuming you're playing Florida. And so at that point, it's neither here nor there.
It would be interesting to see how much juice Hurley can get out of this team in March, not having the overwhelming favorite like he has last 2 years. Could he clip Florida? And if he clips Florida in the second round, assuming they get by Oklahoma, it sends this whole region, in my opinion, into chaos.
Yeah, I wish Coach was here because this was something I'd ask him about. But Dan Hurley in his pressers, both pressers he did in Madison Square Garden, he said, this is the Big East tournament. This is really physical. In the NCAA tournament, in the early rounds, what they do is they're going to call a lot of the ticky-tacky stuff. They want to play physical. So that'll help us in some of the actions we run. So I was going to ask Coach to think about that because Coach is coaching NCAA tournaments, right? Or he knows people who has. So you have some insight on that. But Dan Hurley is saying his team is built for NCAA tournaments, which is something I thought was very interesting. I do think they beat Oklahoma. I do think they lose to Florida. And to Trev's point, Maryland's team I'm looking at. To answer your overall question, to tease it, no, I do not have Florida coming out of this region. This is the 1-1 seed. I'm not picking.
Whoa.
Well, go ahead and reveal
You're in a very small minority. I'd love to hear this.
Go ahead and reveal it.
I could see Maryland beating Florida. I don't have it yet. I could see it. That's a game I could talk myself into. You mentioned the Crab 5. Starting 5 or starting 5. And Florida, one thing Florida has over a lot of teams is size in the front court. That's something they overpower teams with, right? That doesn't work against Maryland. That's Julian Reese and Derek Queen. Those two are big. And it comes out of the guards. Jacoby Gillespie can kind of shut your water off. That's something he's really good at. So, like, I could see that being a tough matchup. I will be picking Florida in the end, but man, that's a tough matchup. But coming out of the bottom, I have my team that making the Final Four. I'm a Big East guy, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm a Big East guy. I believe in the Big East. I watched St. John's in person. They're going to lose to Texas Tech. Texas Tech's make the Final Four again. Grant McCaslin's group is really, really good. I like GT Toppin a lot. Elijah Hawkins, we mentioned Marquise Noel earlier. Elijah Hawkins could have his Marquise Noel moment, man.
I love it.
That's a great comp. That's a great comp.
So
Texas Tech, the way that team shoots the ball too, they got shooters everywhere, man. They got shooters. They defend, really well coached team. Not enough people are picking them. They're like 7th in KenPom. The analytics love them. Texas Tech, man, they could do it again.
Are you worried about the health? Just be honest.
Yes.
Okay. So you're picking this with a clear, like, I'm holding my breath a little bit. I got it.
100%.
So you've made such convincing arguments. So to me, this region's tough outside of Florida, in my opinion.
What do we end up naming the Midwest in this one? Are we going to? Can we do the names really quick?
The Midwest had all those defensive-minded teams, so it's got to be something like the region of, I don't know, lack of pace or something. I don't know, whatever you guys want to call it.
Region of clamps.
The Legion of Clamps.
Right.
I like it. The Region of Clamps. This one is, God, I don't know. Damn, I don't know.
The Region of Drama. The Region of Drama.
Region of Drama. There you go. I like it. In the Region of Drama, guys, I have a hard time because I made the case for Memphis, but you make a case for Maryland, and we all know how good Maryland is. Like, that winner, again, could really cause Florida problems if that was the matchup Sweet 16. You talk about Texas Tech, make a great case. I like Missouri to get to the Sweet 16 over Texas Tech because of the offense. It is all dependent on Mark Mitchell's health. I know he got hurt in the SEC tournament. If he's healthy, he's been phenomenal this year. Who knew when he came out of Duke he would become a three-point shooter? Not anybody I talked to thought he would become a three-point shooter. Caleb Grill, Tamar Bates has been awesome. I think their pace and scoring could outdo Texas Tech. I love St. John's. We've talked so many times with the analogy with Coach Para that it's like the old school vampires. To kill them, you can't stab them a bunch of times. You got to take a stake right through their heart and kill them. But Kansas and Bill Self, as bad as they've been, they've got talent in itself. My mind's blown. I've got Florida. I wanted to pick Missouri really bad in this, but I'm going to say Florida St. John's. I think the Johnnies give one hell of a fight. But this is where the lack of offense hurts you, because if you can't score with Florida, you cannot beat them. You will not hold Florida. I mean, I know Tennessee did, but you're not more nights than not going to hold Florida below 70 points. If you can't score with them, you cannot beat them. Florida over St. John's go to the Final Four.
This is the part where we pick it, right? Or did I already do that? I can't remember. Man, Florida is probably the most balanced, versatile, talented juggernaut team we've seen. That's not a number one overall in quite some time. Like, I think they've just kind of grown into that over the year. It's kind of insane to think about the fact that they had like one of the weirdest non-conference, just bad. Like, they were beating up on everybody, and we were all like, well, they've got to play somebody. And then they beat up in the SEC, and we all went, oh my God. And now, like, look, I'm not going to be surprised. Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida. I'm not going to be surprised if they're the second most picked national champion on Thursday at 12:00. I'm just not surprised. So, to answer the question, I am going to take St. John's because I do believe in the Johnnies. I think we'd be all idiotic to doubt Rick Pitino, first of all. Second of all, to think that this team at least is not built to just control games that they're in. I do agree Arkansas would be really weird matchup-wise. At that point, though, I'm not convinced in Missouri, Drake, Texas Tech, UNCW, before of any of those teams to be playing them to go to the Elite Eight. I'm not confident in any of them to beat them. So if they make it to the Sweet 16, if they can survive, we'll say, their little cluster, I think that's probably the best way to put it. I think they're going to play Florida, and ultimately I have the Gators in the final.
To Trev's point, real quick, Florida is the second favorite to win the national title. It's
they are behind
favorite,
Duke.
Florida second, then Auburn, then Houston, then a definitive gap. Then just pick your.
Who's the highest two seed? Who's the highest two seed?
Michigan State, I think. I think it was. It's Tennessee. Tennessee, I think.
Tennessee 22-1, Michigan State 25-1, Alabama 22-1 as well.
Yeah,
those are some good odds for those teams, by the way. Like,
if you want to like. Alabama's a team that is like really hot and cold, but like if they're on one day, when we just saw them beat Auburn, have they beat Florida this year?
No, Florida swept them.
Yeah.
No, Florida swept. Hey, real quick, other storyline we didn't even touch on. if it's Kansas St. John's, Zuby Ejiofor revenge game coming from
Mm-hmm.
Kansas. We didn't even talk about that. Michael, did you give your pick who's coming out of the West here?
Yeah, Texas Tech. I got Texas Tech.
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. So now we got our Final Four here. And we'll do Final Four champion real quick before we round out. We're going to look over here, so we need to start wrapping up. My Final Four would be Michigan State against Florida on one side of the bracket. I've got the Gators. I think I love Izzo. I think this team's great, but Florida is too much. On the other side, I have got Duke against Houston. Houston suffocates Duke with or without Cooper Flag. I've got Houston. Florida, Houston, national championship game. This is where Houston, I think their offense will fail them a little bit because as great as they've been, again, you got to outscore Florida. They can't get up to the numbers Florida can and go on those kind of kill shot runs like Florida can on a consistent basis. Florida is your national champion. I think they get third in program history. They're too good. No holes that we visibly see. They block shots at the rim. I love the Gators. They're your national champions.
Michael, please. I actually have a semi-long-winded version of how I'm going to pick these, so just bear with me when I get there, but I want to go through it for a reason.
Absolutely. I'll go first then. Again, not like I don't have super strong feelings, but yeah, in my first Final Four matchup, I have Auburn taking on Texas Tech. I do think Auburn gets that one. Janai Broom, I just think they're too big, too athletic. Hopefully you have Chad Baker-Mazara playing with his head on straight, but like emotional game for him. Yeah, it's not guaranteed at all, but I do think Auburn will get that one. Then on the other side, I have one seeds. Frankly, I think I saw something like 20-1 all one seeds to make the Final Four. I think that's very live this year. I would have to see if those odds still exist. They probably don't. I would imagine really smart people took that to the woodshed. But I got Duke taking on Houston. And look, I think this is where it makes a difference. Duke's going to be without their defensive coordinator. You're without Jai Lucas. I think that makes a difference in this spot. Houston's a tough cover, and the way they are so physical, so athletic. I think they're the one team that can really match Duke's length up front, at guard, I think they can. So I'm going Auburn versus Houston in the national title. And I don't know. They haven't been playing their best basketball lately, but I don't know why. I just think the best player in the country, in my mind, the guy who my wallet definitely really hopes wins National Player of the Year. I think he makes a statement in this one. I got Auburn right now. I'm not confident. This is one I could very much flip-flop on, to be honest to the people, but for now, I'm going with the Auburn Tigers.
Okay.
Better.
Okay, Bubba Cunningham, thinking with your wallet there. Trev, finish this thing out for us.
All right. And every single person that's ever followed the Tar Heels just unfollowed the podcast. Thank you for that one. Okay. Just here's a random fun fact that I think is incredible since we talked about Duke. Every four-year Duke student since the graduating class of 1986 has experienced at least one men's basketball season where Duke reached the number one rank in the AP poll. Has nothing to do with today, but just an incredible run of just handing off to John Shire. All right. Enough of that. I am allowed to change what I picked with my gut last night. I am giving myself the graces of that because Thursday is when everything obviously becomes official. Couple things. There are 5 rules for me when determining a national champion. I'm going to go through them quickly. No team west of Texas has won since 1997. That eliminates 13 teams. See ya. Goodbye. No seed higher than 8 has ever made the national championship. That eliminates 29 teams. See ya. Goodbye. Sorry, Lenny. Last 20 champions have been top 12 in the Week 6 AP poll. Does this sound familiar, Josh? Remember?
It does. Yes, it does.
That eliminates 16 teams. Number 4. Last 19 of 22 champions have had KenPom top 20 offenses and top 40 defenses. 19 of the last 19 of 20, so there's a little leeway there, right? That eliminates only 4 teams. And then that leaves us with Tennessee, Alabama, Iowa State, Florida, Auburn, and Duke. And then what does it for me is the last 21 of 22 champions have either been UConn or a top 3 in KenPom team. UConn or top 3 in KenPom. So now that I've laid all that out, that leaves Florida and Duke. I have Texas A&M. Like I said earlier, I'm going to stick to that for now, even though I think Auburn can muck things up and be as dominant as they've been. I have Texas A&M playing Florida. I have Houston playing Duke. I'm actually going to change. I had Duke. I think the point about Lucas and I think the point about Houston's defense, I think will actually be, if they make it that far, I think this is the year they finally just put it all together. And so I'm changing my opinion. I think they think they can really ruin Flag in just a 1-game scenario. So I'm going to change it to Houston versus Florida as opposed to Houston versus, Florida versus Duke. So I'm not really changing the world here with that. It doesn't actually matter the result. I have Florida winning the national championship.
I love it, man. We appreciate everybody. Thank you to Colin Porter and the whole Liberty staff for getting this set up on such short notice. Thought they were great. Coach Lenny is our guy as well. Thank you to Coach Para. I know he came on to top just to say thank you to us, but again, thank you to him because
I'm not gonna lie, I was holding back tears.
Me too. Honestly,
I had to mute myself. I was like, this isn't good. Like,
because like we told him at the beginning, we became friends with him. He's done so much for us with the Sean Millers and Dusty Mays and all this incredible season. He will be back on the sidelines and we will be cheering like hell. No nonpartisan here. When he's back on the sideline, wherever that team may be, ECB will be a huge fan of that and Coach Para, as we are right now. Guys, it's finally here. The games, I know the first 4 kicks off tomorrow and Tuesday, and you have games on Wednesday, but the real thing begins on Thursday at 12:15 with Louisville and Creighton tipping off inside Rupp Arena. This is the best time of year. We have our ECB bracket challenge. It's in our Facebook group. We will post it on Twitter for more details. I have the rules. It is a paid contest. We pay out. It's been great every year. It's our 7th year doing it. Make sure you get in on that. It's a lot of fun each year. But for everybody here, until we come back, when we do come back to you next week, we will have tournament results. The Sweet 16 will be set. One last time, big thank you to everybody. 785 people on a Monday night tuned in for 2 hours to watch us break this tournament down. We are forever grateful to all of you for helping us chase a dream. And I promise you, like Coach Lenny said, we will not forget any of you when we get to the mountaintop where we want to be. I promise you that. And Coach Perry, one last time, thank you. That's all we can say. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you to all of you. Enjoy this tournament. It is the best time of year for our sport. When we come back to you for episode 225 next week, we will have a Sweet 16 set. We will look ahead to who's going to make the Final Four. The madness is upon us. And until Thursday, we hope you guys enjoy the hell out of this run because it's just getting started now. We will catch you guys down the road.
Peace. American Alabama State.